Welcome back here, folks. The SMITE Pro League waits for nobody, so you better already be in your seat. Tom Banniger here as the pilot. My co-pilot will one more time be Ryan Agro-Bailey. What's up, co-pilot?
This is me driving the plane.
Well, as a plane, you got to pull up and push down.
Well, I also got to do some turning.
We're
I'll
going
do the
right.
turning, you do the pushing.
Oh, man, you got to just... We're going right to Obey Airport today. We've got Obey taking on the Pittsburgh Knights, and it's going to be a big game for them for sure. 2-10, not the cleanest look. 8-4 for Pittsburgh up on top. If Obey does find this win, they will leapfrog above Space Station in the standings, and that'd be a very nice look for a team on the up and up.
That is true. Remember, Obey beat Space Station Gaming recently as well, so we know that in the pseudo power rankings, we can pretty safely put Obey above Space Station, I think, which is saying something, to be quite honest, because Obey has not looked good since then.
Which was interesting because we saw them versus SSG, and everybody kind of had a lot of good things to say about this Obey team. Myself included. I think that we saw what Minero was able to bring to the team week in on his weird Guardian picks, but you bring home a W, I'm not going to complain. A couple of people were complaining earlier in the week, though, when Obey was unable to really find it. I mean, what was the difference between Obey, Space Station, and what we saw the other day?
The quality of opponent. Plain and, it's cut and dry.
Yeah.
It's plain and simple. I mean, even look, Obey had a really tough matchup yesterday. You know, it's not like they played a bad team yesterday or anything like that, or anything like that. This team got waxed.
Sure.
And they got waxed against SK. They are in dire straits again today, up against the Pittsburgh Knights. I mean, it really is that simple. It feels like to me.
Pittsburgh Knights, of course, one of the stronger teams individually, and it's going to be a little bit rough for Obey to kind of jump above that. I am looking at Weekend in the Jungle. I mean, this is a guy that can bring his team and elevate them to a spot that can kind of take on the opposition. You know, for right now, it's going to be a little bit tough, but if they do find a win, it's going to come off of Weekend kind of doing things early on, and then maybe there'll be space for Wowy and the rest of the team to fill up, but really it's going to be an uphill battle watching Pittsburgh Knights kind of look to control exactly the jungle.
Yes, I think so as well. I mean, clearly Weekend is willing to pull just about anything into that jungle role.
Yeah.
Yesterday he played Kumbhakarna against the United, and I think that the league is split into thirds right now. The bottom tier is teams like Space Station, like Obey. It remains to be seen if Luminosity's in that tier or not. Mm-hmm. Then there's the middle tier, where SK, E United, those teams live. Pittsburgh Knights is in the top tier.
Yes.
They are among the Splices, the Renegades, the Rivals, the Dignitases. I think that is the top tier alongside Pittsburgh Knights. When we've seen Obey play against teams in their tier, a.k.a. Space Station, they can do well. Those can be competitive games. They played back-to-back games against the mid-tier the last 2 weeks of their competitions against SK and E United and got 6-0'd in combination. That means that this set against Pittsburgh Knights is going to be that much harder because this is their first time going up against the top tier. And we see some teams rise to that occasion, get amped up about it. You know, they play with less to lose. I think against a team like E United or SK, you kind of come in with these expectations. Against PK, there shouldn't be any expectations, frankly. And maybe that's freeing, and maybe we see a better Obey today.
I think that's the key. I think that it is freeing that you come in and because you know, from the horse's mouth, not necessarily Obey, but I've spoken to pro players and I've been straight up. Would you rather go up against a team with all the fan expectations or without it? And they say, look, man, if everybody expects you to lose, there's nothing to lose, right? And so you bring everything out there when Weekend and Obey have been succeeding on these oddball selections, which, again, speaking of pro players, why don't you play more Warriors mid? And they go, because people meme us. It doesn't matter if we win. If you lose, it's such a big deal. Obey doesn't have to worry about that. Pick the Terra jungle and pick whatever has been working for you in your weird scrims. Because, again, the difference between top teams and I think other teams are identifying what makes your squad good and pushing it to the nth degree. Now, if Obey just plays Terra Jungle every game, I'm not saying they win because of that, but I think that they have a little bit more credence to play their style in a matchup where there's no expectations, like you said.
I suppose so. I mean, Pittsburgh Knights are going to come in prepared to play against these Guardian jungles. I mean, they've clearly been watching Obey tape. There's no way they came into this with little to no preparation. These guys are professionals. They came here prepared. And I imagine that as soon as Weekend locks in Kumbhakarna jungle, they're like, Perfect. We know exactly what we're doing against that. They're going to have a plan against the Terra. Watch out for these Ares picks. Adapting's played it in the jungle as of late. EmilZy can play it very, very well. He's played it in support. It's a flexible pick for PK, and one that I think could really decimate a lot of these Guardian jungles that are less traditional. I get Ares as a Guardian jungle. There is a vast difference between Ares jungle and Terra jungle.
Exactly. And even, because we're used to seeing the Athena and the Ymir, right? That's kind of classic. The Kumbhakarna fits in that style. It's a high damage jungler. The ultimate makes a lot of sense.
But it doesn't because it can't clear. That's the difference. Yes, jungler, I think we go over it on Roll Queue, which you should watch tomorrow as it debuts on the SMITE Pro YouTube. The job of the jungler is to clear the jungle.
Yes. Beginning,
end. Nothing else. Everything else that you do is not part of your job description. It's what makes you good at your job. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Kumbhakarna can't clear the jungle quickly. So therefore, I do not think he's a good jungler.
It's pretty tough.
It is very black and white for me.
It was definitely very tough. We'll see if that's the direction that Obey walks into. Right now, Pittsburgh Knight's going to ban one of those. No Geb, so we won't see the famous Geb jungle, thankfully.
I mean, Obey's been top picking this Geb pick, so I mean, it's either been for mineral or for weekend. Most of the time, it's for mineral. PK probably just trying to keep mineral off of gods that he's particularly comfortable on.
Yep.
Just must be. Otherwise, I don't see a whole lot of reason. I don't think I've been inspired by it so far.
This is a big deal. Ducky is wearing Wowy's flannel. Wowy wears his flannel every single game.
Bought another one. Oh no, if Wowie's not wearing it, it's got to be.
That's what I'm saying. Wowy wears his flannel every game.
Yeah.
I'm kind of having a laugh here, but
Oh, he's feeling good. Oh no. Ducky saying it doesn't feel too good for him right now.
No, he's got to show off the lats.
Okay.
That's what's going on there.
Oh no, we're back. All right, thank goodness.
Ducky having a good time before the game, certainly going to be a big deal. He's been honestly a large presence in that solo lane for this Obey team. When Obey do see positive signs, it is usually off jungle solo synergy. So we like to see that. Pittsburgh, though, first pick set.
Instantly.
Ooh, you like to see that.
Obey definitely wanted that set selection, probably hoping that PK would go something like Thor, leave the set open for them.
Yep.
No such luck. That has been Ducky's premier pick when he's looking at his best. I think it's a smart call to take it away from him.
Olorun, the first choice here for Obey. The Sanctified Field certainly going to be strong for Obey. Going up against Pittsburgh Knights, PK are a team that have a ton of individual prowess. And if you kind of dump the Sanctified Field on Pittsburgh Knights, you're able to kind of fight back into that theoretically. And the Thor here. Long-time selection for weekend. We can toss a lot of jokes about him hitting that ultimate. But at the end of the day, I mean, long-time veteran, Thor, it goes hand in hand.
Probably a little bit scared of Adapting getting it as well, but Adapting in their set yesterday up against Dignitas did not really prioritize the Thor all that highly, so maybe he wouldn't have even gone for it anyways. No problems with it though. Thor, strong character right now. Take what you're given and Obey. Get two pretty strong picks in Olorun and Thor.
Anhur. Now that could be for Adapting. Pittsburgh Knights.
Not yet. It's only game one.
Horus will be paired up there with PK. Set Anhur and Horus. Ryan, you think they're going to be aggressive?
Yes. Yeah, I think they're going to kill people a lot.
I think they're going to jump on him real quick. Horus, Anhur, and Set. I mean, this is the most aggressive half draft you can really have. Horus being the support-ish character and still being a jump-on-you type god. Tier, the answer from Obey. An interesting choice for sure.
Set known innate CC immunity. If you can control him, you can kill him. Seems like a fairly good selection. Little bit concerned that might get bullied out of lane, but does have great sustain built in with that defensive stance power cleave. I could see it working. I like the idea. Disarm as well.
Second round of bans coming out at the moment. We see no Thoth for Pittsburgh. Are they going to ban that away from the carry or the mid lane, depending on where they want to put it? Zyrhoes, however, has been the Thoth guy since minute one. And Pittsburgh Knights watching the Pro League. They will ban away the they will ban away the Kumbhakarna. I thought that was a Thanatos, but
close.
It looks like a little dog with little paws.
Do you like it?
Yes. Aphrodite banned here by Obey Alliance. It's no Tofu-chan, but it certainly will.
But who is?
We love Tholb. PK banning out the Bugdad.
Imagine there's not many games where PK don't top 3 a god for Zyrhoes, but I really don't know that Anhur is going to go to Zyrhoes.
Same.
I really feel like Zyrhoes might go towards the Soul that he's played a decent amount. You've already banned away the Aphrodite and the Thoth, and we've reached the end of the god pool, I believe.
The Morrigan.
Ah, yes, Morgan. Yeah, that's a good one. Let's pick that one.
Or Jormungandr.
That's true, too.
I would, and also looking at this draft, I think Jormungandr does very well. I actually really like Jormungandr into Olorun, the Sanctified Field.
Oh, yeah,
just having Jorm in there, obviously CC immune, so it's wonderful. That's a really nice counter. Not where Pittsburgh Knights are thinking about going.
You need some big magic damage here. I mean, you've already got a 4 physical composition. Horus does a good job of enabling 4 physical compositions because Fracture does bring Protection Shred, but big magical damage, Merlin fits that very nicely. I kid about Zyrhoes' God Pool. He definitely has Merlin in there as well as a couple other picks. So you've got options. Merlin, I think, is a great one.
So, jokes rooted in truth, though, Zyrhoes' God Pool has been a topic of conversation, and when you expand the bans, obviously that will be touched upon. Merlin, though, very, very successful for Zyrhoes. I maintain my Jormungandr selection. I mean, I would have loved to see
I just don't think it's enough magic damage. I just don't think you have to respect it. It's sneaky damage, but it's not what you need. And you want this long-range burst damage off of Horus setup. I think Merlin is good. I don't like picking Jorm against Erlang Shen. I just get run down all the time. You get pinned. You're just kind of dead. You get your ultimate force a little bit too often. I think Merlin's the right idea.
Makes sense, specifically with the Erlang Shen. And I love what you said about the Horus as well, that long-range setup. You want to let Horus kind of jump on the opposition and let Anhur from full range unleash the spears. Let Merlin from full range go ahead and deal some damage. And the Susano going to throw a wrench in that kit as well. So with the Susano selection, I think that confirms that we'll see set in the solo lane. Anhur and Merlin will play their carry roles respectively, and then Horus set up and Susano in the jungle. Go ahead.
Moswal going with the Soul. I imagine, though, Moswal has played the Olorun as well. Maybe they give Olorun to Moswal here, and Soul has to go to the long lane. I don't love the Soul pick here. I mean, it's safe, but it's just kind of meh. I don't know. I don't love it. Zhongkui's open, by the way. That would have been pretty solid. I think you had better options than Soul. Soul is just not something that I'm particularly interested in right now.
Soul allows you to match the objective shred of Pittsburgh Knights. Neither team really has any objective secure, but Soul certainly allows you to match the objective shred. This is definitely a composition, Obeys, that is where if you open the window for a little bit, you're losing a tower. You're losing a Gold Fury. And with that in mind, I like that, and travel with me here, because I think that, again, identifying top card, bottom card, David Goliath situation, Obeys' opportunities to find themselves in the lead are going to be few and far between. And with a composition like this, you can make a lot of use of every single opening. You're not going to get half the tower and have to retreat, or get down to 20% on the Gold Fury and have to bail. Soul, Olorun, Erlang Shen, they will destroy it. And that's a really big deal for me, I think. Obey being able to look towards these objectives is how they're going to find a win versus Pittsburgh today. I think that's a big deal.
I agree. Their objective strat does get a lot better. They do have good CC on this composition. Soul Ultimate can continue that CC chain nicely from a distance. But I don't know. I mean, I just feel like there are better mages that you can get to get some degree of safety and still be able to deal damage.
You mentioned the Zhongkui. Where else are you looking?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. We don't see a lot of mages these days, right? It's a lot of hunters towards the mid lane. Assuming this is going to be going to the mid lane, though I'm kind of convinced it's going to Wowy over there. Obey has been very non-traditional in the where they've been putting their characters. Not a big Scylla fan right now, but I think Scylla could have been okay with how much CC you have on the rest of Obey's composition. I just feel like you don't need as much safety. PK is going to dive you, and you're not going to be able to stay safe. Like, at this point, safety is almost irrelevant because PK has so much mobility and so much CC and can chase you down so well that I kind of just want to set my feet and fight and try and take the fight by pure damage alone.
That might be the case. Great looks here from Obey and Pittsburgh Knights. So I think the draft from Pittsburgh, we spoke a lot about Obeys. The draft from Pittsburgh is very well comprised. Long range setup from the Horus and players that can answer it. You heard Ryan break down Merlin. I had a similar feeling about the Anhur. I think Pittsburgh are really going to be able to make a lot of use of this Horus, and that's what I'm looking at every time when I see Horus. Can you follow up?
Yeah, I love this Horus selection as well. It fits perfectly with EmilZy's playstyle. I think EmilZy has been playing very well as of late.
Sure.
Give him a priority pick like the Horus and set him to work. You don't have to do anything fancy when you're this favored. I mean, let's be real. If Obey take a game in this set, I'm floored. I really do think it's PK just has to come in and take care of business.
You might not have to do it. You might not have to do anything fancy, but Deathwalker is on the set. We'll see what the Knights can do with all that. Obey trying to tackle him. Game number 1.
You know, the football kickoff was last night, so Tom was thinking about tackling, perhaps. We move into game number 1. Finch and Taco here. The Knights up against Obey Alliance. I think Aggro was correct when he said that the Knights are heavily favored here. So the ones that got to try and do something fancy, I think, are Obey to make up for that difference.
It's a time-old tale, Finch, in SMITE history at least, where the top of the league starts trying to play against the bottom, and we typically know how it goes for the top side of things, but for Obey, this could be an excellent ringer match.
Yes, I think that it could potentially be one where they can find an upset if they can catch the Knights off guard. Deathwalker indeed taking the set into the short lane, whereas Vote will be playing the Anhur mid Zyrhoes, taking the Merlin to the long lane. And this has been a bit of a conversation. Which teams take their mid laner over to the long lane to play a mage and bring their Hunter player into the mid lane and play a Hunter there? We see the Knights do it, we see Dig do it, but that's about it. And so far, I think it's been a little bit more successful for Dig than the Knights.
I have to agree with you on that one, Finch. It just seems as though, for Zyrhoes at least, he's struggled a little bit more so in this long lane matchup, and same case for Vote and that mid lane. Neither of them really looking, I would say, 100% comfortable, but they're both such strong individual players that you usually can't tell the difference until they're up against a team with similar caliber.
Well, the Susano also here for adapting. Oh, never mind, it's Deathwalker who's in trouble. Weaken showing some early ganks over to the short lane, a bit reminiscent of the AFK Envious days where he used to gank early and often for Cyclone Spin. Now could be some trouble for Moswal, but Mineral comes in perfectly peeling to keep the Olorun alive. That's an impale to create some distance, but Mineral still wants this into the Mink form to try and chase Vote down, hiding inside the minion wave, but it's Moswal who finds a second one. Obey on the board with 2 already.
That was just unnecessarily aggressive from Vote there, Finch, in mid lane. Even if you think that you're alone, we've seen so many supports and junglers make those early rotations towards mid that I'm surprised Vote would actually invest the leap there to get aggressive on Moswal.
Very, very aggressive from Vote. He does indeed end up getting punished, giving away some of this early pressure that Anhur should have into the matchup up against the Olorun. But it's not gone entirely. Certainly Vote can re-establish control here in lane as Adapting is making a gank attempt here for Wowy. Beads still available for the Soul if Adapting does come in. No blink as Adapting's gone beads a lot lately, and that means there will be no gank. Wowy with the Disapparate is gone, and Adapting just helps clear.
And Wowy doesn't even wait out for that full Disapparate to kick in, cancels it almost immediately, understanding that there's no real kill potential for Adapting on that one. Probably just showing face to alleviate some of that pressure Wowy was applying against Zyrhoes in that dual lane. But bringing things back towards mid, I think to an extent I can understand why Vote would want to look for that 1v1. If he gets the in-hands in alone in the 1v1, then the impel damage typically going to be enough to bring down that Olorun. It's just that when it comes to the early game, I almost certainly would have to favor this Obey composition.
Blue buff invade in the cards. Deathwalker and EmilZy both here. Mineral on his way to tip the scales. And blue buff stolen by Obey Alliance. There's a pin from Mineral in the back. Ducky with a 2-man Fearless. And Deathwalker low. A nice heal from EmilZy, but Weaken teleports to the hammer. Right there waiting is Adapting, but Deathwalker falls. The wall does land from max range, and that gets the beads out from Adapting. But so far, Obey have had all the pressure on the map.
Good discipline, though, from Obey. Could have probably continued harassing Adapting, but just didn't want to take any chances with these short respawn timers and the possibility of Deathwalker coming out of base while Obey was still harassing Adapting at speed all too high there. But you're right, Finch. It is entirely Obey completely taking hold of the map.
And I feel very confident saying that I am surprised about Obey having this really good start to the game. Now, I'm not surprised that Erlang Shen in the early game has been effective and Thor in the early game has been effective, but it's just that the names are the ones that are surprising me a little bit, the Knights and Obey Alliance. But we've seen we can play at a high level before. We know that there's potential there for Mineral as well, and Ducky, we keep hearing how strong he is, and they've all made some nice plays to get this early lead.
What makes this interesting in my mind, Finch, is I'm almost wondering how much respect are Pittsburgh Knights actually willing to give this Obey Alliance squad, because you heard it on the desk, you're hearing it from us. It would be surprising for Obey to take even one game here, because that is the perception that Pittsburgh Knights have given us as a roster. So for this early game dominance to kind of be breaking through now from Obey, it might even be a little bit of a wake-up call for Pittsburgh that you can't just expect this set to go your way.
I do think, though, aside from like maybe the Horus, there is some credence to Obey having this early game. No, they've got this Anhur there for Vote as well, who certainly wants to be a bully in the early to mid. So yeah, it's not as if Obey have a huge compositional advantage at this point right now. I think they just came in a little bit more proactive. They knew where they wanted to look for pressure, and they've gotten it so far. It's just up to the Knights to respond.
And they're also just playing to their strengths. They know exactly what a Thor and an Erlang can accomplish in the early game. And Pittsburgh Knights, I mean, they're kind of feeding themselves into this. Vote jumping in at level 2.
Sure.
Something that I think is kind of uncharacteristic to see from a lot of these players at such a high level. And for him to take that risk, pretty much forfeited a lot of his mid lane pressure that he might have otherwise had on this Anhur.
The blue buff this time successfully controlled by the Knights on the right-hand side. That's kind of been the point of contestation for Obey, has been to try and strip that blue buff away from Deathwalker, but this time he grabs it for himself, and the Knights regain control of the timer and the farm. Deathwalker is trying to grab this Totem of Kuba. For the most part, these have belonged to Obey as Ducky makes his way over.
And for as exciting as this early game has been for Obey, bear in mind, this is only the first 6 minutes that we're just about to approach. What I'm more interested to see is whether or not Obey can translate some of these good early game pieces into that mid to late game power, because I still don't think that Obey have a lot to give up in the mid to late game. I think this is very much a composition that could definitely continue to hold onto a lead. It's just whether or not they're going to actually continue to strip that farm away from PK in the jungle.
You know, it's tough to talk about some of the things that Obey have struggled with. With Space Station, you know, it's pretty clear. We've always said there's been some struggles with picks and bans, and then they actually get ahead a lot and then give the games away towards the mid and late game, it feels like. So we know their identity. Hold that thought as Ducky in some trouble. Adapting comes back to pay some revenge, and Ducky falls to the gank. But kind of on my note about Obey, I don't know if we can point quite as quickly to what their problem is with their team as we can with someone like Space Station. As long as they've got the lead, I'm going to trust them to be able to keep playing it.
And I think one of the differences here, hold that thought though, Mineral getting aggressive now, 9 turns, Blessing used onto EmilZy, and he is just getting blown up right now, but Vote making sure to return the favor. Weekend actually going to get the last hit onto EmilZy, and Vote unable to close it out. Adapting
does come to the back line to find his way towards Mineral. The Sanctified Field coming up huge, because I think Vote actually had some really big turnaround potential to keep EmilZy alive with that Impale, as it looks like they will definitely be losing this red buff. Wowy going to pick it up. So that is a pick for them in the middle lane and a red buff Invade.
Weekend also going to make sure to strip away those back Harpies, and one more time, Pittsburgh Knights on the receiving end from a proactive instance out of Obey, and Zyrhoes about to feel the fire force of this Thor, but double tap going to fail to connect. Good wall, but flicker's even better.
Allows for Zyrhoes to reposition. And in that gank, even if Weekend couldn't get his life, if he could at least get the beads from Zyrhoes, that would have been quite fruitful, but instead does not even get those, and Zero remains A-OK. Remember, just before that, though, they took the red and those back Harpies, so not as if a waste of time for Weekend or anything, but just doesn't get much from the actual gank itself.
Plus, I think that Zyrhoes had to have known that it was only Weekend that was going to be rotating in. Otherwise, I think we do see him burning out those purification beads, but Mineral having died in the mid lane as that trade out for EmilZy's life essentially is a pretty telling tale that not going to have anything else to worry about.
This is it for Deathwalker yet again. Weekend showing even more presence in solo, though Adapting does find Mineral on the Erlang Shen. Looks like the rotation was too late to keep their solo laner alive, but they can at very least punish the support who they catch making their way over there. And I kind of alluded to it jokingly earlier, but this is something we've seen we can do on other rosters, kind of sit on the solo lane a bit and try and get that matchup ahead. It's certainly something that's proven to work from in the past.
And it's definitely helping to shut down Deathwalker, giving Ducky, I think, a little bit more room to breathe in this set tier matchup. But more importantly, it's just also keeping Weekend on par with Adapting, if not maybe slightly ahead, but there's no real lead yet that's broken out. There's about a 1,300 goal disparity between these two teams, but that right now is nothing to really be too concerned over.
EmilZy down to about 60% HP rather, as red buff looking to be invaded. Blink from Mineral into the 9 turns. Blessing Adapting has to retreat. That's the Sanctified Field down as well, as Weekend picks Zyrhoes as the target, but doesn't find a ton of damage. Thankfully, he still had the beads, repositions, and it does another red buff invade for Obey.
I am just loving this aggression, though, from Obey, Finch. They are looking to just continue strong-arming every single little bit of XP they can from this map, even if it's supposed to be the Pittsburgh Knights buffs instead. But Gold Fury Vision, having been completely in control of Obey so far, has made it really difficult, I think, for PK to just look for recovery points, because even in their resets, they're resets where you can't look for a response right away because someone already got too poked out from PK for them to want to continue the fight.
And I do want to say in Obey's favor, Taco, that I know there are some times when teams go into matches and they might feel defeated already. I've never seen that from Obey, even in Phase 1 when they weren't under that Obey tag just yet. And I don't think you're exactly right. I don't think you ever will, man. This is a team that always comes in confident they can win. And it's not just Weekend. I know he's that core and he has that aura too, but this whole squad believes in the 5 players that they have together and that if they line up against you, they've got a chance to win.
I think it says a lot, though, for this team in terms of mental perspectives for the players when you can see somebody like Weekend who takes pretty much every single verbal beatdown you can imagine.
Yes.
And completely on the chin, does not seem to care the slightest bit about it, just keeps doing his thing. I think that goes a long way for some of these other players from Obey, and I think they're mostly just positive personalities in their own right.
Agreed. There's something to being confident in yourself and kind of taking some of the not great stuff that you can get in life in stride, and Weekend and the rest of the squad has certainly done that. Not going to be able to find much with Deathwalker this time. A little bit early for the blue buff spawn, but they can try and control this position. Deathwalker looking for the flank from the lane, but it's a nice blink from Ducky into the Fearless. Deathwalker does make it back to the tower, and Vote actually cuts out Mineral again. This has been a problem on these ganks. Mineral can't seem to get into a safe position.
To be completely honest with you there, Finch, I didn't even realize that Mineral was near solo lane at all. That is how quickly he got blown up by the Pittsburgh Knights, and it was just a matter of seconds. And top of that, Moswal could be in some trouble now, Adapting with a really good wind siphon, but still unable to close it out just yet.
Moswal still low, though. He's going to need some backup. Ducky's here, and Weekend still lurking in the air. But they give up on Moswal. Instead, they look for action by the mid-Harpies themselves. Can't find a whole lot there. And Obey Alliance accept the disengage. Moswal's beads on cooldown now, as well as Votes.
Weekend, though, indirectly forcing EmilZy to reshift his attention from maybe being able to continue picking off Moswal into forcefully having to try and peel for his team instead. Vote, though, losing the purification beads now means that he's susceptible to these Anvil of Dawns and will likely change up his positioning in mid lane for it. I do think he has been a little bit more aggressive because of the fact that he's on this mid lane honor, and he knows that he's trying to snowball to a certain extent, but you still gotta be careful and a little bit mindful because Thor right now is definitely starting to hit his mid-game stride.
And that's not to mention the Sanctified Field at all either. Desert Fury or any CC immunity feels so strong when you're inside that Sanctified Field to give you a chance to reposition. So without the beads, that ultimate becomes even more critical for Vote when he picks that timing to use. As Deathwalker's again under siege. This pressure has been relentless. We don't see solo focus like this that often, but Adapting in the middle lane knows doesn't have to worry about Weekend. They go all in, taking down Mineral and Moswal.
And this is part of the problem, though, Finch, with trying to gank a set, because if Deathwalker manages to wiggle away through those sand clones and the teleportation abilities, it's not going to leave a whole lot of time for Weekend to then try and redirect his focus back towards mid. Pittsburgh Knights, they've just been watching, I think, everything that Obey has done throughout the first 10 minutes of this match, and now they're looking for their turn to kind of respond, and this is it. It's just buckling down on Moswal and Mineral instead if Weekend's going to pay so much focus onto DW.
Doug, can we see the charts really quick? Kind of to speak to Taco's point, you can see it's come all the way right back up in the Knights' favor. There's the beginning where the Knights were a little bit caught off guard by this aggression from Obey, and then the adaptation from the Knights almost immediately. And it's been Deathwalker surviving the ganks much better now too, which is impressive, as well as this renewed focus from adapting onto the mid lane without Weekend there.
And it's been, what, maybe 5 minutes at most since
quick.
I first pointed out that 1,300 goal disparity between these two teams. But remember, you can never get comfortable with any of those small leads, no matter how early on they come when dealing with teams like PK.
Sanctified Field, they're making Deathwalker the target yet again. In comes EmilZy to peel for a solo laner. That hammer chunked, but it was not enough for the pick. Deathwalker doesn't have teleport. He'll miss out likely on some farm, as he will have to back here, but not another kill.
Not another kill just yet. Adapting, still looking for more onto Moswal. Typhoon gonna be good. Desert Fury's got some decent damage as well, but Moswal still managing to cling onto life. Aegis and Beads both burned out, however. And on that note, I think it's only a matter of time before Pittsburgh Knights maybe redirect their focus towards that Gold Fury, knowing that Moswal has no actives to fall back on.
There's just no way he can come in and try and contest now. Even the Sanctified Field had to be expended a little bit earlier, so doesn't have nearly the tools that he'd want, especially if Wowy, or excuse me, if Zyrhoes rotates in level 15 right now on this Merlin, just ahead of everyone else on the map except for Ducky. It could be difficult for them to fight into that space control and objective burn.
That gold is definitely starting to hurt Mineral's pocket, though. The itemization differences between these two supports is definitely coming to light here, Finch, because EmilZy, he's nearly done with the mantle or spirit robe, kind of free to do as he pleases right now, and is still getting the benefits of that 7% cooldown reduction with just the T2 finished off. So for Mineral, he's still yet to even finish stacking these thieves.
That's right, Mineral a good bit behind, as this time Deathwalker does defend his blue. You know, I'm a bit surprised at how quickly we've moved away from the Pride win. It was such a go-to item for just about everyone in that slot, but a little bit of prots off it down to 30, and it's not quite as viable, it would seem.
It's just not as necessary to rush anymore is the main difference here, but Pittsburgh Knights now looking to give Obey a little taste of their own medicine on this red buff invade attempt. Wowy, though, tosses out the Stellar Burst, won't be able to secure, however. Weekend gets the Anvil of Dawn onto 2, and EmilZy and Vote looking for the disengage.
Weekend pulls the beads away from Vote, but no one ends up falling. The Knights are able to reposition. Looks like Obey chose the blue pill, and Knights want the red pill. EmilZy and Moswal battling it out inside the Sanctified Field, and Vote has to reposition. A nice wall from Weekend because he's got backup, but Wowy's Supernova doesn't find much at all, and suddenly it's the Ducky show as he takes down a Vote. Blink in Fearless cleans up the kill.
You could think you've managed to escape from everything, but when there's a blink tier on the map, Finch, no one is considered safe. Zyrhoes gets some decent damage, though, out of that Ice Dance on the Merlin, and that could just be enough to prevent Obey from wanting to pull this Gold Fury right away.
Looks as though they are playing this one slow, and they have played with confidence this game. They knew where they wanted to go to be aggressive, so I think if they'd wanted Gold Fury there, they'd have went and started it. This team has made the calculated decision to not go for it there, and that they didn't have the advantage they felt they needed. But Ducky is the lead for Obey. They purposefully, deliberately put Deathwalker behind to get Ducky ahead. They got to play through him a little bit more, I think.
And that's the thing. It's whether or not Ducky can continue to translate that little bit of a lead from solo into the team fight scenarios. And I think the strangest part to me is that it's two very different goals between Ducky and Deathwalker in these engagements, because DW, he's just looking to capitalize and punish a backline. And the first member from Obey to break away from the safety net of their team is going to be the first one to get picked off, more likely than not. And Adapting's also, I think, kind of hand in hand with Deathwalker on this strat, where it's really going to come down to the Susano and Set to be those backline enforcers for PK. And on the other hand, Obey are kind of just relying on Ducky to have so much chaos and control through this tier that Deathwalker and Adapting never get a chance to strike on Obey's backline.
Chaos Control. Shout out to Shadow the Hedgehog real quick. Giving me some flashbacks.
Some good times, man.
To Sonic Adventure 2
Adventure Battle. Oh, God, dude. Games just don't hit like they used to.
You're right, man. We used to hop on the Dreamcast, man, and make that Sonic Adventure 2 battle happen. That was real, man. You can catch some hands behind some Sonic Adventure 2 battle back in the day. But here in the present day, as the Knights and Obey are battling it out, Vote's going to get chunked by Weaken. And you're talking about, can they get enough value from Ducky? Can he make these rotations? And is he going to be able to get to the back line with adapting a Deathwalker diving his own back line? You know, would they be able to find that space? And I think that he can. The Knights don't have that much peel. It's a lot they're relying on EmilZy and then their own repositioning tools to try and keep themselves safe. If Ducky can pick his spots correctly, he's got a green light, I think, to make some noise.
Wrecking Ball composition has been coin turn for some time now in Smite, and that's just because of the meta that we're in right now. Deathwalker, seen this one too many times before. Some aggression out of Ducky and Weaken, going to bring him down to half health, and it's this Brawler's pickup from Weaken, I think that's been the most problematic here for the Knights, because there's just not a ton of team sustain. It's mostly the self-sustain, I believe, that most of PK is trying to rely on here through that set and Horus, but the Brawler's proc does everything that Obey need.
It's going to shut down a lot of that self-sustained in a little bit that the Horus is able to do for the squad as well, which in a prolonged fight ain't nothing, so it definitely helps if you can mitigate a lot of that here with this Brawler's Beat Stick, so certainly a good pickup for Weaken. I'm a little bit surprised, though. He's gone all in on damage. None of this Bruiser that we see, not even like a Shifters or Blackthorn or anything like that.
It's one or the other when it comes to Weaken. He's either Kumba Jungle,
right,
saving the entire team, or he's going to play Thor and just look for that full glass cannon mentality. And I prefer to see the latter of the two, Finch, because if Weaken is on it, and I think he's definitely been on it so far with this Thor, has had a lot of really solid wall connections into the double taps, and Berserker's Barrage also not too difficult usually to find the DPS there either. And it's been working. It's been forcing back the Pittsburgh Knights, even if it doesn't always lead to a kill necessarily for Obey. You could still get that technical KO by forcing them back to base.
Weaken's been holding his own, 4-0-2, even with King Kenneth here right now. Top of the player damage chart for Weaken as well. So
they're
Thor,
actually twins.
Early on, look good. That's right, they're both 4-0-2. Build path's a little bit different, though, as it looks like Adapting wants a late Transcendence after he's gotten the Hydras, but everything else the same.
Could be a Heartseeker.
Oh, maybe.
But the 10% cooldown from Transcendence would align with the Hydras, and I think that 20% CDR is also something that Adapting is looking for here. Plus, with just a raw power spike in general, you don't need all 50 stacks in that Transcendence to really benefit from the damage this item can help provide.
This feels like enough of the ganks on Deathwalker, though, right? Like, just coming over to wall, hammer him. I don't know how much value we're getting out of that 22 minutes into the game now, though. Like, now we can, I feel like, you know, come hit someone else.
But it is forcing Deathwalker to play more reserved, and
Sure.
I think that even that can go a long way for Obey, because DW doesn't know now. He's been conditioned to believe that Ducky and Weaken are going to collapse him, and now Ducky, he's actually rotated over to the Gold Fury miles ahead of Deathwalker, so Obey gonna get this Gold Fury down 50% health, and it is melting.
They're bursting it with all this objective shred that they have. Obey, grab the Gold Fury, and they are done. Fight over. Not going back in. Weaken even committing the ultimate to guarantee the disengage. And you're right, I mean, there was no way for Deathwalker to get there in time. But now, when they start the Pyromancer, when they start an FG on the back of this, Obey didn't use that much, just the Frenzy and Weaken and Wowie's ult. They can definitely still fight.
This is tough, though, for Pittsburgh Knights. They are the ones who are actually pulling the Pyromancer. They want the immediate response. Ducky going to find a Fearless onto EmilZy. Blink over the wall from Mineral, but PK Knights have already taken the Pyromancer. Good secure from Vote off that Anhur impale. But Obey, they still want to keep the fight going.
EmilZy and the Horus ultimate using it just to disengage. Moswal gets some good damage in onto Zyrhoes to bring him down quite low. But for the moment, I think Obey might still have a bit of an advantage. Adapting had to use his bead in the last fight. Looks like the blink had to be used by EmilZy too. So Obey will use this opportunity to force down the tier 1 tower in the middle lane. Still only 12 kills, but this has felt very contested between these two teams.
Very back and forth so far. In fact, Finch, I might even go a little bit further than that to say that this has felt a little bit more like 60-40 in terms of Obey to PK. I mean, maybe 45-55 might be a little bit more accurate.
Sure, like a slight edge to Obey, I would say.
It's not by much.
Right.
That's for sure. But I definitely think that Obey, for the most part, have felt just a little bit further ahead than Pittsburgh Knights because, yeah, PK, they get the Pyromancer, but then what does Obey do immediately after the fact? They force out low health bar members and siege a T1 tower, and they don't try to force it any further than that. They look and they assess where exactly PK are at. They realize those members who bagged from the Pyromancer are going to be coming out of base in time to defend that T2, so pushing in, unnecessary. This seems like an Obey that is definitely learning from their mistakes.
And to sort of speak to the point we were talking about earlier about the confidence from Obey, you know, stepping in, grabbing your Gold Fury, leaving, contesting the Pyromancer, can't find it, leaving. Those are all the sort of calm, calculated plays you make if you're trusting yourself to be able to win this game later on. If maybe you feel like it's a crapshoot, you have to go for something, then maybe you do overcommit on the Gold Fury or on that Pyromancer fight. But I think this clearly speaks to Obey's, you know, confidence in themselves to win, that they're playing calculated and safe.
I just think that the reinitiation factor is steeply in favor of Obey here in comparison to Pittsburgh Knights, and it's because of that low crowd control that we mentioned. I mean, EmilZy's pickup of the Spear Rope into the Oni's Hunters leads me to believe that he's definitely had some issues with some of that crowd control and wants to reduce a lot of it. And that's going to be critical for the Horus because he's pretty much the center of attention here in terms of CC provided for PK.
They do add those two items, a good deal of mitigation and tankiness for EmilZy as Mineral becomes the target, finds a three-man taunt on the back end, knocked up, but into the Sanctified Field. Impale pushes him out, but Mineral survives and gets off the heel, and now it's Ducky way in the back line, seeing if he can claim a few lives of his own, but stuck inside the obelisk. He has to keep on moving. It's time for the disengage, and neither team gives up that much except for 2 sets of beads on the carries for the Knights. I might give that fight to Obey.
I would definitely have to give it to Obey off of relic usage alone.
Yeah,
the
I
only
agree.
one who loses a relic here is Ducky for Obey in comparison to Pittsburgh Knights, where Mineral is able to pull 2 sets of beads. And that's off both of the carries. So now Vote and Zyrhoes both fairly exposed to getting caught out by a weakened Anvil of Dawn.
I'm very surprised that it was the Knights that even considered pulling the Fire Giant. Perhaps they thought Obey might full back there and they could sneak one, but with this current relic situation, and as we've already mentioned, not a ton of peel compared to some other compositions, it'd be quite risky to start at the FG now, and that's why they back off. Obey might need to take this opportunity to force a fight.
I think Obey should be trying to force a fight right now, specifically around this Fire Giant, because that'll be where PK are undoubtedly the most awkward to try and work these assassins into the back line, because it is a little bit of open space inside of that Fire Giant pit, but more importantly, it just forces the grouping for Obey, and the only real AoE damage that I think you'd have to worry about is that from the Typhoon out of adapting, maybe the Stormcrows and Wind Siphons, but Zyrhoes. That arcane stance and, well, any stance that he's in on the Merlin could definitely be a little bit problematic.
Knights grab both oracles, so there will be no secrets about this next Fury and anyone who starts it up. Zyrhoes nearby. Has to be careful doesn't get collapsed on by Mineral, but the rest of his team has eyes as Deathwalker and EmilZy put out some damage. They only have about 40 seconds, though, to capitalize on this window that Mineral's opened up for them, and I don't think Obey are looking for it. At a certain point, the cautious behavior that I liked earlier on in the game does start to move beyond that to a little bit too cautious, and eventually you do have to take your shot.
Obey, though, this could be the shot that they needed. It's actually going to be Pittsburgh Knights doing them a favor, pulling this Primal Fury, and Obey, they know, 15 seconds, and it's only getting lower.
Zyrhoes still does not have beads, though. If they can get to him now with the dunk, then they found the moment. Vote in trouble as well as Wowy releases the Supernova. Moswal eradicates Deathwalker, and they don't even need the Fury right to FG for Obey Alliance. 3 for 0, it's all them.
Well, on the bright side for Pittsburgh Knights, Zyrhoes and Vote will definitely have their beads for these Phoenix defenses, possible T2 tower defenses. I don't know if that's the direction Pittsburgh Knights are looking for, but on the same hand, it would feel pretty bad to just let Obey take all that free tower gold, because that's about 5,000 total to the team. Primal Fury, though, won't be a part of that, as Adapting and EmilZy will look to bring that one down, no problem, but right side T2 has an army of archers behind them, and Obey, they are just knocking down the doorway.
They're right. They can go right for the Phoenix and get this one pretty freely. EmilZy and Adapting would have a tough time defending this on their own. Looks like they've recognized it. So Obey can't end there, but that's huge. They've grabbed the right side Phoenix, and they can still go get those tier 2s, as you mentioned, with the advantage of the Fire Giant. It's now a 6K gold lead for Obey, and they capitalize on that window off of Mineral pulling those 2 beads. I don't know how Zyrhoes and Vote were supposed to make it out of there.
But look, Finch, it's one thing to be in the driver's seat, which I think it's fair to say Obey are very much in the driver's seat right now, especially with the right side Phoenix having been brought down on that last push. But closing out against a Merlin is still going to be another half of the battle for Obey to overcome in this game 1.
Obey Alliance now out in front, about 6,000 gold. One thing to keep in mind, though, is that they are trying to siege into this Merlin, into a Susano and a Set. I mean, there's a good deal of defensive poke from the Knights if they are trying to defend up against Obey Alliance. I do still think Obey have some really good tools for sieging. Olorun, this Thor ultimate, the Anvil of Dawn, to get to the back of the fights.
Just
Blink
Soul in general.
from Ducky, anything from Soul. So, I mean, they've got plenty of tools at their disposal, too. But the Knights are very, very much still in this one as well from their own right.
It's mostly Wowy, though, who I'm going to be keeping an eye on, Finch, because I have a hard time believing that Adapting and Deathwalker haven't already made Wowy their primary target here, because if this Soul is left alone for even 2 seconds, it's just like Chronos, maybe even a little bit worse to a certain extent, because of that Disapparate, still able to get a couple of autos up before you hit that full immunity to everything. Weekend, though, just looking to cut off Deathwalker in mid, and this could be a problem if Pittsburgh Knights wind up losing their solo laner now.
Deathwalker is able to get back to the Phoenix, though it's very close, a lot closer than I'm sure he would have liked. This is the tier 2 tower now in mid down as well. Now, most of these towers, the one in mid, the tier 2 in left, the tier 1 there as well, those have all been gotten, and they haven't had a chance to spend that gold. So Obey not quite as far in front in terms of the actual impact as the numbers might lead you to believe. But this is still their fight. Mineral moves in first with the Blink Taunt. Does find EmilZy, but not a whole lot else on the back end. They dunk down on top of the Horus, who repositions back towards Vote. There's the big ulti from Adapting as well, but this left side Phoenix is low. Ducky has EmilZy in his sights, can't complete the kill, but they've already gotten the Phoenix.
All Obey have to do now is just a hard reset. Fire minion wave pushing in from the right-hand side. Only a matter of time before those fire minions start pouring in from the left. Also, mid lane, the one lane left for Pittsburgh Knights to try and take a final defensive stance on, and Vote's already lost half of his HP to a nice hammer stun combination from Weekend.
And Obey, even with the Fire Giant only for another 45 seconds, they still want this mid Phoenix as well. They want to fully break the base of the Pittsburgh Knights and have this Titan fully exposed, but the Knights now fully set. No beads there for Zyrhoes, though, as he's already been hit by the pin. Does have the flicker to get away from the wall as EmilZy finds 2, both Weekend and Wowy. Sanctified Field cuts the fight, but Deathwalker finds the shutdown. He wants one more as well, but he's been controlled. Wowy gets that kill as EmilZy comes in with his own ultimate. A good bit of control there from Zyrhoes should slow things down as far as the push.
But the Titan is taking a little bit of a beating here now, Finch. The last 3 members from Pittsburgh Knights still trying to stop Obey in their tracks from sieging all 3 Firebirds, but they might wind up losing that right side Phoenix in the process if they're not careful.
Obey can smell a bit of blood in the water. They don't want to give the Knights a chance to regroup, though this might have been a bit too much from Mineral. Vote and EmilZy clean him up quite easily. But as long as they can keep the Knights' attention here on the mid-Phoenix, then these minions keep pouring into the Titan room. Ducky goes in to create some space. Supernova pushes Zyrhoes out, and that's all 3 Phoenixes for Obey. And Taco, you know what a threshold 3 Phoenixes are. It's going to be very difficult for the Knights to win from here.
Well, luckily enough for the Knights, that siege from Obey on the mid-Phoenix ends right as that right side Phoenix is respawning. Fire Giant also already worn off on all the surviving members of Obey, so not a chance that they'd be willing to really stick around to look for that right Phoenix one more time. But an Oni Fury on top of the 2 Phoenixes already sieged, those fire minions are going to be boosted up, Finch. And this next fire giant is also going to be an enhanced fire, one that Obey doesn't even seem like they need all that much in terms of objective secure either.
This is big for Obey, and I just mean this one game in isolation. Can Obey take a game where they've been in the lead, at least marginally, for basically the entire game? And now at this point where it's heavily in their favor, can they close one of these out? Obey needs to get to the point where they're one of the teams where once they're at this point, we have faith in them to close it out, because I still don't until they actually show us that they can. Obey, bring this game home and start to earn that higher spot.
I am amazed that Pittsburgh Knights are this far out of their base right now, but it could be them
Agreed.
trying to bamboozle Obey. Weekend up into the air with that Anvil of Dawn, looking for his target.
That's Flicker. Now Zyrhoes is a sitting duck. Weaken stamps down on him immediately with the Anvil of Dawn. Vote goes in the Desert Fury for what damage he can get off. Aegis buys him a moment. Adapting does find Moswal, but they've lost both their carries. Weaken with a double. Finds Adapting as well. EmilZy going to do his best to reposition with the Horus ultimate, but this now all Obey Alliance. Even without Olorun, they've got soul for all the damage you can need.
Finch, Pittsburgh Knights were looking for a surprise pick, and we're not expecting, maybe they were, I don't know if that was their game plan to try and go heads-to-head with Obey here, but Obey, they might just take this game 1.
They've got every opportunity. The Titan at half HP. Frenzy now popped, and Ducky goes right to the Titan. Wowy's the target, but he's putting his damage in. Game number 1, not to the Knights, but to Obey Alliance. They look strong.
Yeah, that was just Obey coming through and playing better Smite in game 1. And if you ask me,
dude.
Finch, I don't think we see Weekend get Thor again.
I don't think so either, or if he does, I think they are going to be a little bit more ready for those solo side ganks. That's what really did it in my mind for the Knights, is that they got Ducky into a position where he had about a level and a half or so lead over the Knights, over Deathwalker for basically the whole game. I don't know if they'll be able to just wash and repeat that again, but it definitely worked for them here in game 1.
I honestly thought that Obey did a stellar job at kind of making up for Mineral's differences, because I do feel as though experience was starting to become a little problematic there for Mineral at
Yes.
one point in that mid-game aspect, but Weekend immediately alleviates a lot of that pressure by shifting the attention back over to that solo lane, and by isolating Deathwalker to be so confined to that solo lane, he just never had a chance to participate, really.
And for what it's worth, I do think Mineral made the biggest play of the game. He's the one that got that taunt, that got the
Yes.
beads off both carries, and they were able to get the Gold Fury out the back of that, or the Fire Giant eventually. So eventually he did make up for it, but that's only game 1. I imagine the Knights have some potential to bounce back after this break.
Alienware, the official PC provider of the SMITE Pro League.
We kind of painted a picture that did not come true. Lucky for Obey fans and the Obey team, their picture did come true. Obey Alliance take game number 1 of this set. And I got to say, Aggro, this is one of the more surprised I've been.
Yeah.
It was a legitimate, strong Obey victory, and I mean no disrespect when I'm surprised here. But this wasn't just cheeky, oh, we grabbed the Fire Giant and ran it down mid. This was a 2,000 gold lead for the majority of the game.
Yeah, consider me floored. I said I would be if they won a game. They won a game, and it was really all around Weekend. Weekend hard carried this game.
Absolutely.
I mean, that is the beginning, middle, and end of it. He started off by ganking Deathwalker early on in this game, But Adapting did answer back pretty well. Adapting was all over the map early as well. He was consistently making plays on the Susano, and that was what was keeping PK in this one. But really it all comes down to this big Gold Fury fight that we'll see in just a little bit. This Thor dunk from Weekend ends the game. I mean, sometimes you just have these individual plays that change the entire course of a game, and that's exactly what happened. It was a fight that PK wanted. They started it up, and they group up and end up getting crushed by a Thor ult plus an Olorun Sanctified Field.
There it is.
This is just obscene. To walk together in that tiny little area, you cannot afford to stay grouped on that area of the Gold Fury fight. Otherwise, Weekend's going to find a huge dunk.
You can see that at that moment, 5-0-4 for Weekend in the Jungle. Ducky saying, "You're right, Wowy. It's the flannel. I see it." Ducky 1-1-10. The way
Ducky is so
should
pure.
be.
He's so pure.
Ducky gets it done, man. Certainly getting it done here. Strong looks from the tier player, second tier we've seen today. Maybe it's something to take a look at. But, yeah, I mean, this one, like we said, kind of Weekend front and center. And this matchup is jungle v jungle for sure. There are plenty of talented players on the field, but it's going to be up to the junglers to kind of dictate the pace of the game. And I loved watching game number 1 because it felt really old school Smite. When I rewind and go back to when we were watching like launch in season 1, it was very much junglers are driving it. It's ganks, and who can kind of fall in line around it. That's what this game felt like, and it was Weekend versus Adapting. Another tale as old as time. I mean, this is great stuff to watch in the Pro League, and Weekend coming out on top. Sometimes it's nice to watch the bad guys win.
Crushed it. I mean, he played so well that game, and now if I'm PK, I go, all right, we experimented, we gave you Thor, it didn't work.
Yeah.
No more Thor for you, and we move on, and we see if we can win this set, playing the way we expect to play.
Looking at Obey, I intend to, or I expect to see them continue to feed Weekend with these choices, whether it's going to be the Thor, give him something that he can dictate the pace of the game, something with early to mid prowess.
Isn't it like, yeah, this is why you play Assassins, dude. Like, you don't get to do that on Kumbhakarna, for God's sake. Like, pick the Assassins. It drives me crazy because he can play this well. He can win games by himself like he just did. Why are we doing this Terra nonsense?
Because
I don't get it.
Because sometimes it's about the big picture, and sometimes as the veteran, you need to let your rookies kind of take the spotlight.
Okay, let's zoom out even more from your big picture. What's the big picture of playing competitive Smite? Is it to win or lose the game? Regardless of how you do it. Yeah, it's to win. Pick Assassins, dog. Find the tab. It's the first one.
You can also type in Assassin.
Yeah. Good Lord.
You know, you can also type in melee or ranged, magical, physical, pantheons as well. I'm pretty sure that's it.
Cool. Find the Assassin tab. If you go to the melee one, you might find a Guardian by accident.
Vote looks real excited about this one.
Yeah, because he just got dunked on in that last game. He played very aggressively in the early game. He got punished. And this is interesting that PK goes from
Is that a still?
putting Vote in the mid lane and Zyrhoes in the long lane. Then yesterday against PK, or against Dignitas, they switch back. Zyrhoes goes back to mid. Vote goes back to long lane.
Right.
They lose that set, but it was close. But they lose that set, and now we're back to Vote mid, Zyrhoes long lane. Maybe it's matchup dependent. They feel like they can get a little bit more. They got a little bit more mileage out of Vote in the long lane yesterday. But, I mean, Zyrhoes played well that game on the Merlin. It just feels like PK as a unit didn't play well together.
Obey. Banning the Thor away from themselves here. Ganesh and Chronos also banned away. Pittsburgh looking at the Isis, Geb, and Set. That leaves them using Cobb. The pressure Prince for Pittsburgh Knights. We'll see if AMC can get it done. If I'm Obey, so here's the deal: is I think I'm using Cobb. Obviously, is very potent. We see him picked all the time, but he's also vulnerable to the right compositions. We've seen a number of teams kind of look towards that. I mean, we've seen the Kumbhakarna selections be picked up a little bit more, which really decimates AMC. Erlang Shen does a great job of decimating AMC as well, and so I love this choice from Obey. Whether that's going to be for the jungle or any other position is up in the air, but I like the choice nonetheless. And the Olorun is absolutely, like I said, Obey going up against Pittsburgh Knights. The Olorun Sanctity Field is something that absolutely enables your squad to win team fights.
Agreed. If PK is going to try and deathball us, nothing better than Sanctified Field. I agree with this idea, but I like this pick for Deathwalker. Just get him on the Osiris, let him go to work. Soul pick early here for PK. This is a pick that Zyrhoes likes. And Wowy and Obey won with it last game, despite me saying I didn't like it. But when you watch the game, when you look at the player damage numbers, the Soul didn't do a whole lot for them. To be fair, he didn't have to.
Sure.
Because Weekend was into killing everybody, because that's what his class, the Assassin class, does.
You've been saying Assassin over and over again. If
It's
I get
Duckies.
Achilles in the jungle, I'm down.
It's Duckies.
You think that's Duckies for sure?
Yep, 100%. Your Mineral is taking that Erlang Shen, no doubt in my mind. Ducky is getting that Achilles, and it's a matter of what Weekend wants. And now, if I'm PK, slam ban Serket. That's the first thing I'm looking at. Ratatosker is a good one as well.
That's
Take away
the first,
Rat,
yeah.
take away Serket, make Weekend play a Guardian if he wants to. You're begging him to pick Terra in this game, I think. You would pay the man to play Terra.
I agree. I think there's a time and place for everything. I'm not super behind the Terra jungle.
Okay. I don't get it, man.
I don't get that either.
And now if I'm Weekend, I go, ha ha ha, yeah, exactly, thanks for banning that. Really, the rest of Obey is like, thank you, giving them some waves. They send Vinny over with a nice card for them, and then you pick Serket and win the game.
That's absurd. And I like the Poseidon selection first by Obey because Poseidon's going to absolutely shut down what Serket can do. Whether Pittsburgh Knights want to shoehorn Poseidon into a weird position is another story. But taking away that option, sure, I'm here for it. Listen, I'm not fully in aggro world where I think you should never play a Guardian jungle, but I think after the game number 1 that you had, you do what you're doing.
I don't think you should never play.
So, I'm sorry to put words in your mouth. Sorry.
I don't think it has worked for Obey, and now they should never play it.
That's fair.
But they experimented,
Sure.
and it failed.
Absolutely. My apologies. Didn't mean to paint you that way. But, time and place for everything, and not now. You just won the game against one of the top teams by enabling your jungler. If I see a Ymir pick here, I will... Can I hit you?
No.
I won't hit aggro. Last seconds, and it will be a Chernobog.
Poseidon jungle. Go ahead. This is your time.
Poseidon jungle is fantastic. Oh my... I'm waiting for it. Poseidon jungle. How often have I mentioned Poseidon jungle aggro?
All the time.
So Poseidon jungle. Poseidon has fantastic ability to clear the jungle. Ryan earlier in the day said all you really have to do as a jungler is provide wave jungle clear. So Poseidon can do that no problem whatsoever. Poseidon's got additional movement speed thanks to what's going on with the passive. Fantastic gank ability when it comes down to his ability to provide burst damage with the Kraken. There's a lot that Poseidon does that enables him to be a fantastic jungler, and he's going to be here in the hands of Weekend, ready to take home the game. We love Poseidon jungle.
Hey, I won us the game on an assassin last game.
Class irrelevant. What Poseidon does is similar.
No, it's not.
We'll see if it works out. Game number 2, Knights Obey to John Finch and Taco.
I'm super excited for this Poseidon jungle, which I think is going to dominate this next game. Good points made there by Tom F. Badger. I got to find myself agreeing. Weekend is indeed on the Poseidon. Taco, talk to you about how you love it.
SMITE Ranked has officially full-on bled straight into the Pro League. And that is my analysis, Finch.
You know, Aggro loves Poseidon jungle, too. He talks about it all the time.
I like it a little bit more than aggro in this case, though. Because
That's hard to do. He loves it so much.
You do have the 9 turns blessing. That is true. He does love it quite a lot. But the 9 turns blessing for Mineral, I think, could be really strong when synced alongside of those Whirlpools. And the Whirlpool Cripple, in general, I think that's something that I think is centralized entirely around beating up on EmilZy this game, because it really does not impact much of anybody, if anyone at all, really, aside from the Xing 10 here, since both Zyrhoes adapting, Deathwalker, all of them kind of rely on really particular forms of escape.
It's not quite like having, a normal assassin who comes in with like a Fear No Evil or an Anvil of Dawn. But he does check a lot of the boxes, Poseidon. He can move through the jungle very quickly with his stim. His clear is phenomenal as well. And if he can get the knock-up off the Kraken, if he can get the Whirlpool to lock you in with the slow as well, then it does feel like he's got some decent control. I think I'm at least somewhat here for this. Obviously, I think your margin for error, as in it's much easier to win with a traditional assassin or even a warrior with some assassin leanings, but this can definitely still work too.
Well, helps a little bit when you don't have to worry about beats on Zyrhoes. Maybe we see Weekend try and stray on over to that duo side of the map, look for some early punish, but I don't hate the pick for Weekend. I think that it definitely has some merit, but it really is that execution factor, but execution not going to be a problem when Weekend's able to find the first blood onto a EmilZy title surge coming through hot.
Poseidon jungle, baby! Tom's not here, so I must channel his energy here for him. He'd be very excited about this first blood. Now, I think we must all objectively accept that that was Erlang Shen that did that, and Poseidon got the last hit.
No, I think that was just entirely Poseidon damage.
No.
All Poseidon.
No,
Can't stop.
No.
Won't stop.
Who rooted?
Clearly the cripple from the Whirlpool.
That's a good point. Yeah, that was. You know what? Talk about. Yeah, I'm on your side. You pulled me back over. I think I'm gonna agree with you. This Whirlpool though is pretty nice as Weekend finds the second kill of the game. Again, off Mineral's strong performance in the Erlang Shen, but yes, Poseidon did have the follow-up.
Sorry, Finch. I can't hear you over my own genius bleeding through the microphone because EmilZy has been made the focus, baby, and he should probably get used to that Whirlpool view, just like Ducky hopes he can get underneath his T2 tower in time.
Sickle.
Off the mark there for Deathwalker. Unfortunate, but I know Ducky's happy.
And Ducky able to make his way out of there just barely on this Achilles. And you're exactly right. This Xing Chen in the early game has been getting bullied by Obey Alliance here so far, whether it's Mineral with the knock-up into the root, into the rest of the damage to the rest of the team, or the pin into the Whirlpool. His options are very limited for getting away from this Poseidon and Erlang combo.
You definitely got to get those punches in early against a Xing 10 as well, because Xing 10, level 5 and onwards, definitely a force to be reckoned with here, and partially, I think that it's the Xing 10's ability to root members so easily that makes him such an ideal pickup for PK, because it gives adapting a much easier instance of looking for the Trickster Spirit or the Powwow even. But that lack of CC immunity on Weekend, Moswal, Mineral, and Wowy to a certain extent if he's not in that Living Nightmare, I think could definitely be a drawback in a lot of these team fights if they're too grouped up for adapting.
Shoes of focus now for Weekend, as one other nice side effect of having 2 kills to his name is that he is going to be a good deal ahead of adapting in terms of his Assassin's Blessing stacks as well. I think he was 16 ahead before he took that back timing, whereas adapting has still been here on the map farming, so he's been able to catch up a little bit in that time. But Weekend certainly has a chance to capitalize. The Kraken now available as well to make things even harder for the Knights.
Something I am looking at, though, and not to say that it's a concern just yet either for Pittsburgh Knights, but Weekend's Whirlpool Kraken is like a guaranteed Aegis burner for either Zyrhoes or Vote.
Right.
Maybe even both, if they're just happen to be stacked alongside of each other. But that's going to make it a lot easier, I think, for Wowy and Moswal to really take up the mantle here for the rest of their team and just have that consistency in their own follow-up, because I have to expect most of the damage not going to be on Deathwalker in that last Kraken.
Lord of the Afterlife available, so he's certainly going to survive here. Weekend, I think maybe just a little bit too early on that pull in terms of his closeness to them. And I don't think it could have ever reached for that Kraken from how far he cast it. The stun was there, he just might not have realized, but either way, they don't find that pick onto Deathwalker in the short lane.
Not a half bad damage check, though, for Obey, and I think
like
even
they could have gotten that kill.
Ducky
right, yes.
probably could have forced that underneath the T1 tower. Whether or not he would have lived to tell the tale is another story entirely, but I definitely think that that was more so Obey letting Deathwalker get away than Deathwalker actually escaping.
I think so too. Unfortunately, it wasn't quite as clean as they would have liked, as Moswal's feeds are forced and Mineral gets pulled back in. He'll be pulled by this Powwow as well. And even with the Sanctified Field, there was no bailing Mineral out when they're willing to commit 3 ultimates, well 2, except for Votes, to get the kill. So that will be it. Mineral takes the first spill for Obey.
Only so much to be done as an Erlang Shen up against the Daji Xing 10 combination, and that was pretty much the instance of aggression I was waiting for from Pittsburgh Knights. EmilZy hits level 5, next thing you know, Mineral is dying, and if he's not careful, might just end up being a reoccurring theme here, but it seems as though both sides kind of taking notes on each other's supports.
Obey, with that first gank attempt, couldn't quite hit home. So they'll need to make that second one work, or else they've kind of lost all the momentum they got from that early gank. Now, I do want to point out one other thing that is kind of scary for Pittsburgh Knights is that Wowy hasn't even rotated yet. Once he starts using that Living Nightmare to rotate to these fights, they're going to have so much kill potential to anyone they can catch out of position because they also have this Poseidon in the jungle and the Olorun mid. I mean, this is a scary time, I would say, this early mid game if you're on the Knights.
For sure, you can never really factor any engagement to be guaranteed, considering Wowy could join just about every single one of them if he wanted to. So long as that Living Nightmare is available, Pittsburgh Knights are going to have to be somewhat reserved in a lot of their ganks and initiations. But on the same note of Wowy, I'm kind of curious to see whether or not this Devo's Gloves could maybe wind up being a Bloodforge instead. There is a good amount of burst. Mineral trying to make Vote show us some of it.
Mineral in some trouble now underneath the tier 1 tower, still taking it, but manages to survive. Weaken gets the important kill. They trade support for the Hunter's life. Adapting wants to clean up this kill into Weaken, but can't quite get there, and the dots aren't enough. Moswal finds one more. Obey make it 2 for 1, and only give up Mineral.
Even if Adapting had found that pick onto Weekend, he was guaranteed dead there, I believe, with Wowy rotating in after the fact also. But with two members from PK having just been brought down, red buff looking awfully tempting here for Moswal and Wowy, except they're not going to be able to close the gap just yet. Vision definitely established. 2 wards now from Obey on that red out of Pittsburgh Knights, so they'll still be able to hold on to the timer at least of that red for possible future invades. As it currently stands, Obey just going to have to accept the reset for now.
You shall obey all our wards, I suppose, on the red buff, as they've got tons of vision of what's happening there. But that engagement, I think, does kind of show the potential for Obey, the way that they can rotate to these fights so quickly and catch someone off guard. Even with Mineral thrown under the tower, he got the beads out from Vote first by using the 9 turns blessing. Vote's going to be vulnerable to yet another gank here for another minute window plus that Weekend can try and take advantage of.
Also, no matter which way you choose to break it down, swapping out your support for the enemy team's mid laner is always going to be more beneficial for the team that gets the mid pick instead.
Agreed.
Weekend still lurking on this solo side. Deathwalker knows he's got his fans here, and there's not a whole lot he can do about it either, except call over Adapting. But that deep ward vision gonna serve pretty beneficial here for Obey. They know exactly where Adapting is at. EmilZy maybe not so much, but I like that Obey aren't trying to force anything if the situation just looks even remotely out of their control.
3-0-1 for Weekend, a part of all 4 of these kills here so far, Taco, and it has come from some patience, except for the one gank on the Deathwalker, where I think Weekend might have been a little bit too early there with the Kraken, at least if they wanted the knock-up and the max damage. You still do get decent damage on the side, even more than before nowadays if you're not hitting the direct center of the Kraken, but that one got away from them a little bit. But aside from that, I think patience is a good word to describe the way that Obey have played so far. They won't be able to capitalize on this window with Vote. His beads are going to be back up here in a few seconds, so he'll be safe again. But that's okay.
And oddly enough, don't let the scoreboard fool you by any means. Obey might be leading in kills, but they're not leading much of anywhere else, really. The experience difference, all slightly in Obey's favor. Gold's all tied up, however. And Obey looking to start breaking into some of that. Successful red buff invade, and Vote has already taken enough hits, having to sit on that T1 tower line up against the Poseidon jungle, and losing out on that extra little bit of damage, definitely going to hurt him.
And even though it's evened out, I think it might actually be still in Obey's favor because it's Mineral who's behind that's hurting them. But they do have Moswal ahead of Vote, and they have Weaken ahead of Adapting. So that might all kind of come out in the wash numerically, but I think it's on the right spots as Zero has to use the beads to reposition. Disapparate's good to keep him safe. Weaken drops the Kraken and doesn't find a kill, but does find beads.
And the problem for Pittsburgh Knights is that there isn't really much room for punish here against Obey. Even without the Kraken, they still have such good objective damage between Wowy and Moswal that PK can't look for an early Gold Fury.
Adapting may have become the target. Wow, makes his way to Deathwalker. That Trickster Spirit covered a good bit of ground, and Adapting is out of there on the Dodgy, so they won't be able to get much more there. I'm curious if Weekend is going to make his way back over to the long lane, though, and try and look for Zyrhoes one more time. Even without the beads, it can still feel tough trying to gank a Soul with that Disapparate available.
Soul is never a fun one to try and gank, but if you get those early kills, it can feel really good shutting her down and trying to just keep her suppressed. Wowy, though, it in my mind, is still definitely kind of training Zyrhoes to be a little bit more hesitant in this lane. And that's the one main thing that I've noticed between games 1 and 2 here for Obey, is that they have steadily but surely kind of made PK afraid of how to play in those lanes. The team fights, you know, is an entirely different story because Pittsburgh Knights are certainly a team that understands how to handle their 5v5 situations, but they just keep letting Obey find the picks.
I do think Obey might need to find a little bit more, though, as Weekend gears up for yet another solo lane gank here on the Deathwalker. There's no blue buff to strip away here either, so Deathwalker must be heading towards these back camps. But I think he's got an idea this is going on, even dropping a ward, give himself a bit of notice, and Weekend has to give it up. Can't afford to stick around waiting on Deathwalker all day.
Had to have caught him out the corner of his eye, plus that ward placement from Weekend. Not as inconspicuous as he might have been trying to make it seem.
EmilZy is able to find 2 inside the Whirlpool, or Whirlwind of Rage and Steel. There's going to be the Sanctified Field from Moswal, and the turnaround potential's huge. Moswal does get pulled in, but Deathwalker falls. Ducky finds a double off the Fatal Strike. Might even find a third. No, Wowy wants to get in on the party. 3 for 1 in favor of Obey Alliance. And so far in this set, up against the Knights, Obey have looked like the better team.
They are running circles around Pittsburgh Knights right now, and Finch, I'm not sure if it's overconfidence or what, but Pittsburgh Knights cannot afford to overlook this Obey squad any longer, or else this set's going to get away from them.
Not at all. I said it on Esports Weekly, a show you should check out Wednesdays at 4, that this was a big week for the Knights. They had a matchup that I think was tough earlier on up against Dig, but also a match that could be sneaky hard to prepare for and easy to overlook here in Obey. And I don't think they overlooked it by any means. It's a team that takes everyone they play seriously, but I think it is hard to prep for Obey because you don't know what they're going to play week in and week out, and right now it's Obey on top.
Well, Weekend is without a doubt probably one of the main wild cards we have in the league so far, Finch.
Yeah.
And this Poseidon jungle, it's earning its stripes here.
3-0-4, baby.
He's been a participant of everything that has happened on this map so far, still holding on to a slight experience lead over Adapting as well. And it's not like Adapting is just any ordinary jungler.
No, Adapting, not only is he, a phenomenal player, obviously, in his own right, but he's been playing well here today. He kept even with Weekend all of game 1. They were 4-0-2. We talked about that for a while up until the stalemate got broken at that Gold Fury fight. He's been active here on the Dodgy. He pulled Moswal away with the chains in that last fight, but it hasn't quite been enough so far.
Deathwalker trying to get some sparks to fly in this solo side, Finch, but
What up?
when you factor in that Adapting is on this Dodgy, that does take a little bit of ramp-up time before you're able to have those big, impactful ganks, and I think that that's where the Poseidon has gotten just the slightest edge here over PK. It's not that Pittsburgh Knights are incapable of responding, it's just that their damage and power spikes don't line up at the same time as Obey's.
It's Gold Fury time as Obey head on over to the Gold Pit. They've got a Wowy considering it, but maybe it's not Gold Fury time. Let me fix my watch. Looks like Obey are done with it, and instead it'll be the Knights at least considering, but in the end, Zyrhoes drops it.
It's just Obey knocking on the door, seeing who's home. Pittsburgh Knights respond almost immediately, and that's enough for Obey to want to back off. That is until they realize that Pittsburgh Knights still only has the 4 here.
EmilZy initiates to get things started. Weekend and Wowy already quite low. In fact, Weekend has been removed. Up onto the Palo goes Adapting, and Mineral will indeed be getting pulled back in. Big damage from Vote, and Zyrhoes cleans it up just like that. 2-0 in the Knights' direction this time, and they'll be adding a Gold Fury to their coffers.
Obey looked a little confused there. I don't think that they were expecting Pittsburgh Knights to just initiate like that, but that is exactly the intent, and PK will reap the benefit of taking that Gold Fury away now off the picks of Weaken and Mineral here. But when that powwow happens, I mean, that was a full-on panic kraken from Weaken.
Well, I think he knew his life was over, and he had to at least try and get some value out of it there. But you're right. I mean, Obey were clearly not ready for the Knights to be the aggressors in that fight, which they absolutely were. They got that fight started before Obey were ready for it, caught them off guard, and they removed the two problem areas immediately, Weaken and Wowy, by bringing them down so low. And Obey weren't ready to have any kind of counter collapse.
And that was huge for Vote, especially Finch, because it closes up that level gap that was starting to develop between himself and Moswal. Zyrhoes and Wowy, also, I think, another point of attention here, because Zyrhoes now actually leading over Wowy, and as we continue to climb later and later into this match, it's going to be very fickle, I think, between these two teams, and it will really just come down to who gets the first pick, because both of these compositions, I think, kind of rely on staying together.
And kind of snowballing over the other one, at least in terms of the individual textures of the team fight. And maybe like a slight edge to the Knights. They do have EmilZy on the Xing, who's a proper Guardian frontliner. I mean, Mineral can certainly do some of that same work, but he's been a little bit behind this game. We know that he's kind of had some struggles, so I don't know if he can close that gap the same way that the Knights can. So I do feel like Obey would rather try and close this game out in this mid game before we get too deep into the late game.
All of this constant fighting has been tough for both of these supports, though, I believe, because EmilZy and Mineral, they're neck and neck in the experience departments.
Right.
Ducky actually the one leading the charts over everybody else. Keep in mind that Achilles did just get a pretty nasty double kill execution, and that is also something that the Pittsburgh Knights need to be careful of in their backline, because if anybody gets too low, there isn't a ton of self-sustain for any sort member on the team. Vote and Zyrhoes kind of relying on their itemization over everything else, and even then, neither one of them really prioritizing lifesteal.
Speaking of some of these Hunter builds, Wowy looks like he's going to be moving into some Crit next with a Fail Not. Already has the Tier 1 available. And Crit actually doesn't feel too bad here. No one's really positioned to punish it. Certainly no Thorns or anything like that right now. So Wowy should be able to get pretty good value if he does end up going into that Fail Not. Plus, obviously, Moswal just gets free Crit in the kit since he's Olorun.
Always a good thing, having those crits stack on top of each other.
It's good for him, yeah.
Destroy that Pyromancer. Mineral, though, finds a good 9-turn blessing onto 2. Wowy now going to join the fray with that Living Nightmare. Catches EmilZy in the root of the Crystallized Curses.
And he gets rooted by the pen as well, but hiding inside the pit means there's little follow-up, and Pittsburgh Knights make it out of there essentially scot-free. Not really any relics having to be burned either to make their daring escape. Obey were considering the Tier 1 tower. They're instead going to settle for stripping away the red buff. Looks like they sent Weaken to handle those duties. He'll use the stem and the movement speed to get further away, but he might still be in some trouble, as now he's been caught by the Whirlwind of Rage and Steel. Mineral has been pulled back in as well. Weaken had to use beads. In goes Adapting up onto the Palo, and Mineral clearly is going to be the target, but Sanctified Field buys them some time because Ducky's alone on the back line. The collapse comes through, and Ducky gets shredded.
Ducky just couldn't find Vote at the very end there. And a good disengage from PK makes it impossible from anybody else from Obey to try and push forward to look for the final blow. A pretty big win as well, because now with Zyrhoes still full health, mostly full mana, he's going to take apart that 2-1 tower in no time at all. Doesn't even need that heat passive to be fully stacked on the soul. And now, clean reset can officially break through here for PK. It's almost like a sigh of relief in a sense, Finch.
For the Knights, I think you're right. After the way Game 1 went, and then a good start for Obey in Game 2, the Knights are trying to remember that they are indeed the Knights. But to me, this is a little bit more about Obey. I think you talked about the decisiveness of Obey in Game 1, that it looked like they knew what it was they wanted to do on the map. That I haven't seen from them as much this game. I think they were correct to recognize they had a really small window to make a play after that Pyromancer and the Knights were disengaging, but they couldn't pick if they wanted to commit to the Tier 1 or where they wanted to go, and that floundering, I think, gave room for the Knights to move in.
It's just about forcing out EmilZy's ultimate on this Xing 10, but Pittsburgh Knights, they're tired of waiting around for Obey to to take a piece of the action. They want it all for themselves. Fire Giant going to be pulled. Fire Giant down to 10%, and it's gone.
The Knights have grabbed it, and really it was only Ducky nearby. No way for him to make his way in, and in fact, he might even be in some trouble as the Knights are willing to dive the Tier 1. All Obey can do is go grab the Primal Fury, but that's not even a second place medal, that's bronze if you compare it to what the Knights just got. Tier 1 tower and right going down, and a pick. They're going to grab the Tier 2 as well.
This is all uphill for PK, and they are just cruising right now. I'm kind of surprised. I would have expected a little bit more of a bite back from Obey, but it seems as though the Phoenix is what they were waiting to take their stance on.
Frenzy popped by the Knights as well. They want to start this fight on the right side. Phoenix EmilZy is going to be caught inside the Kraken. No, he leaps away and doesn't take nearly that much damage. At the very least, though, Obey keep this right side Phoenix standing for now. The Knights are going to have to make a full-on siege if they want to take it.
Moswal still holding on to that Sanctified Field. The time dilation could come in clutch here if they're smart with it, but Obey, they just don't have a whole lot of Phoenix HP to work with.
Zero's caught by the root, but it's Wowy in trouble. He makes his way into the wall. Deathwalker underneath the Phoenix does get the tether off onto multiple, but no actual stun. And now that Ducky has rejoined the fray, I think that's going to be it for this right side Phoenix siege. So definitely bad for Obey, but not a disaster as it could have been.
Could have certainly been a lot worse. If those backs had taken even a couple seconds longer, that Phoenix would be toast, Finch. So smart plays out of Obey to just sacrifice the T2 tower in the process. There are still two pretty healthy T2s left on the map as well, but I'd imagine Obey a little bit more interested in actually utilizing the map structure itself underneath those Phoenixes for their defensive standpoints as opposed to the T2 towers outright, because losing one fight right now at the T2s, and if PK are able to establish a clean wipe, that's a tied up set. They'll burn through everything with Soul.
Almost 23 minutes in here now, Taco, and I'm a bit worried about Obey's lack of team fighting relics. If you know what I mean, like they don't have a
All
frenzy
in.
or a sprint. Mineral, I don't blame him for picking up the beads. He was a sitting duck to Adapting's pull to any control by EmilZy in the Whirlwind of Rage and Steel. I do think he probably needed some kind of CC immunity, but going into the frenzy sprint from Pittsburgh Knights, not having anything to match it, is going to make things tough on top of the Fire Giant and the gold deficit. As Adapting goes up under the powwow, he's aggressive under the Tier 2, does get the beads out from Weekend at the very least, and that's a big get.
Trading Powwow, though, for the Purification Beads might actually benefit Obey here a little bit more than it appears initially, Finch, just because of the fact that Adapting doesn't have a whole lot of cooldown prioritized on this Daji. Went for a lot of power items instead between that Transcendence and Bloodforge. And now, with that in mind, Pittsburgh Knights instead going to look to play it safe. They take T2 in duo, now look to just take the T2 in mid, as opposed to trying to force a Phoenix again.
This time, Obey want to show a little face, Taco. They're not going to give this last Tier 2 up for free. And this feels like a soft defense to me. You try and waste some of their time here, but I don't think you hard commit to a fight underneath the Tier 2. But EmilZy wants to get it started anyway. They drop the Sanctified Field looking to catch out the Xing Chen, but it's not enough to find the kill. In fact, Mineral gets melted between the damage from Zyrhoes and Thoth. Now it's Ducky in a little bit of trouble as well, but the Whirlpool slows down the chase. Either way, Ducky has to use the Fatal Strike. Frenzy popped by the Knights. They want this mid-Phoenix as well.
Between a Soul and an Amuzin Cobb, they're going to get it, Finch. Right side, left side don't have any minion waves. And that Fire Giant going to be wearing off in a couple seconds or so for the PK fellas. But the damage has already been done. Obey, they lose Mineral, and immediately the mid-Phoenix sieged. No problem whatsoever. And that's just a glimpse, I feel, of what Pittsburgh Knights composition is truly capable of in terms of this structure shred.
Mineral still gets caught out despite that he's gone for these beads. It's his relic selection. But what a just efficient use of the Fire Giant buff from the Knights. They got the Tier 2 in right, the Tier 2 in mid and left, and the middle Phoenix. Even were able to come back and grab the Pyromancer and find some picks. That's huge. Obey could barely slow them down during that push at all.
In my mind, I think that's the best time to take a Phoenix, in fact, because the Fire Giant is just about to wear off, so you know that by the time the next one respawns, that mid-Phoenix is still going to have a long ways to go before it's ready to start resurrecting. And because of that, I don't know if Obey are really going to be capable of having a solid fire giant defense, but you also don't want to let Pittsburgh Knights get this FG for free, except if you're not there upon initial spawn.
Mineral.
I don't know how you stop them anyway.
Mineral is able to avoid at least the root thanks to the Magai's cloak, but that's the 9 turns blessing as well, forced out as he thought the chase was a little bit more committed than it turned out to be. The rest of the Knights heading back towards the fire giant. I mean, they can just keep doing this all day.
Weekend does still have that Kraken, however, so Pittsburgh Knights going to have to keep an eye out for this Poseidon nonetheless. With the Magai's proc as well to work through. Deathwalker trying to actually eat it out, and sure enough, will be able to pull off that Magai's cloak.
Deathwalker's the front line for them, taking a good bit of damage, but he's sending out plenty of his own as well. Weekend already low, and doesn't even get the Kraken off before he falls. Next one in trouble, Moswal. That's a double kill for Adapting Vote. Finds one of his own to get a killing spree in the Knights. Now with 5 members up, only 2 for Obey, and they should just be able to walk right on in through where the Mid-Phoenix used to be, and even this setup 1-1.
They're not even going to pay much mind to Ducky. Mineral actually going to blink forward, looking to harass Adapting, but Adapting's just zoning both of these warriors away from the rest of his team. Pittsburgh Knights close this one out, no problem.
And this is more like, I think, what people were expecting coming into this set, for the Knights to show us some of this dominance that we had here in this game. But just look at them after the game. They're not happy about the way this has gone, that they lost game 1, that game 2 was kind of rough at the start of it too. I mean, I think that Obey has looked strong here so far.
There's definitely more to be desired for PK in that early to mid game aspect, Finch, because if you ask anybody on their team, they're not going to be happy with these performances so far.
I don't think so.
Not to the standard of play that the Pittsburgh Knights hold themselves to individually, at least.
Especially if you want to beat teams like Renegades, Rival, Splice. I mean, clearly you got to play at a really high level if you want to slow those guys down, and it hasn't been at the level that we know that the Pittsburgh Knights can play at least not yet. Now that it's 1-1, there's still plenty more of this set to go. We'll get the rest of it on the other side of this break.
INAP, powering the control room for the SMITE Pro League.
And just like that, we're tied up 1-1 as Pittsburgh Knights are able to take game number 2, put it in their pocket. To break it down with me is, of course, Aggro, the illustrious. Fantastic job. How you feeling?
Feeling pretty good. I will admit that I was concerned because Weekend got off to a very good start on the Poseidon jungle. But ultimately, balance was restored.
Well, certainly balance was restored with respects to the set. It's 1-1. We're perfectly
That's
balanced.
true. That is true.
The Poseidon jungle looked strong. In fact, Obey Alliance in general looked kind of strong until there was one fight around a gold figure that I think kind of changed everything.
Yeah, it changed the dynamic of the game. It stopped the momentum for Obey. It got Mineral a little bit further behind, and that's where a lot of this Poseidon jungle success was Mineral success.
Yes.
I mean, it was just Mineral setting up for Weekend. And look, it worked well. I gotta concede it. I'm not saying it wasn't working. I'm not even so sure that the Poseidon jungle is why Obey lost this game. I don't think that's a fair assessment. I'm just saying that when you have a pin and a knockup, any
Sure.
character in the game does that.
Absolutely right. At the end of the day, a lot of these early plays will be, brought to you by Weekend. I think at some point he was 4, 0, and 5. Really fantastic stuff. Like you said, a lot of it was off of some support play from his team, but the damage was there for sure. I liked it. Again, it was a team loss that I think really came through because we started to see surges like this from the Knights.
This sanctified field bait by EmilZy, he did this so well yesterday against Dignitas, then again in that exact fight. This fight to end the game, Weekend never gets his Kraken off. That is a good way to lose a team fight for sure. Need to get, I mean, they're not using your ultimate, very bad in general. Not using Kraken, really bad. You got to get it off at some point, just as a dying blow or something like that. Never happened there for Weekend, and ultimately Obey Alliance, who were already losing the fight, end up losing the game.
Knights, excuse me, Knights take this one, look pretty damn good doing it. Deathwalker kind of returning to the character that he loves, adapting. The Daji has quickly become his kind of modern, when we think of adapting of yesteryear, we always go to Thor. Daji has been his go-to selection. He can do some hard carrying with it by just deleting players. He can do some strong control with the ultimate, obviously. Avoid what you want to do. The Daji has been a go-to option for adapting anytime the team needs a win.
Daji is just really good. I think that she has fallen in and out of the meta. Her early clear is not great. She has horrible buff secure in the early game. That's a big problem for her, and you can get invaded at level 1 a lot of the times, and there's not a whole lot you can do about it. But when you're able to get into that mid to late game, she's nearly unstoppable. Every ability scales at like 100% when you add in the passive scaling. She does a bunch of damage. She's mobile. She can get herself out of combat. She does everything you want an assassin to do.
Pretty nuts, absolutely. As we jump into picks and bans, we'll see which direction people go. We'll see if the Daji gets reprised one more time, if adapting opts for the Poseidon jungle. We'll see how that one works out. For now, our bans are out.
I don't think PK is banned in Poseidon this game. I'll say that much. Obey, I like the ban of the AMC. Vote was a big problem for them in the last game, just putting out consistent damage. Pretty rare to see AMC anywhere but the mid lane. Obey did it a little bit yesterday, and then PK deciding that they want to try it out today. Vote. Oh no, Vote played mid, of course. Yeah, we're good. That's where it's supposed to be.
The Geb ban next to the Isis ban coming out from the Knights, and Obey looking at the carries instead. No AMC, as you were mentioning, his prowess has been very high. The Soul banned away, and the Ganesh, something that Obey don't want to see played. EmilZy, I think, is a strong Ganesh player.
Man, I really hate this Geb ban from PK. I mean, Obey has been willing to first pick it, but it hasn't been very good, I don't think. Now you have to give up Set or Thor, and you're going to give up Thor. I do think this was probably the right call. Yes, we can hard carry game 1 on this pick, but I don't mind rolling the dice again on that. Set just so consistent for Ducky. Every time he's gotten it, he's popped off. I just don't think you need to ban Geb, to be honest with you.
I was down with the Geb ban until last game. Mineral's a rookie. He has played Geb virtually every game that he's been allowed to play, and he's only really looked super strong on the Geb, so forced him to play something else. Last game's Erlang Shen looked good enough. So if you're gonna ban the Geb, I need to see an Erlang pick as well to kind of double whammy the support, and that's not gonna happen. Osiris next to Chronos for Pittsburgh Knights.
These two picks are fine for PK. Obey is going to go Erlang Shen plus something here. They've always taught. I don't think they've bottom 2 to mineral pick yet so far this phase. So it looks like it's probably going to be Achilles, and what I imagine will be Erlang Shen for mineral. Like you said, it went pretty well last game. Had a pretty good start. I don't see Obey going anywhere different.
Horus will be the choice. Achilles, of course, in the hands of Ducky, and the Thor. We'll go to Kurt Schrey. The Horus has been powerful pretty much no matter who picks it or whatnot. And, you know, I'm a cheater. I watch Mineral stream. Horus, he has a handle on. He definitely knows how to play this character. He's played it a lot, you know, is ranked. Very different world than competitive, but absolutely knows how to path the god. So I'm very excited to see what happens here for Obey Alliance. Into the Anhur from Pittsburgh Knights. But all in all, just cut the draft in half. Thor, Achilles, Horus. I'm here.
Yeah, it's not bad. I wasn't super in love with the Achilles last game for Ducky. Clearly, PK was ready to collapse upon it and really deal with it pretty well.
Right.
The Horus pick, we saw it for Mineral yesterday against E United. It did not work out particularly well, if my memory serves me properly. But something to be said for switching it up and being a little bit less predictable. Still a god that you should know that Mineral has in the pocket for sure, especially when he played it yesterday. But overall, still a different look than what PK saw in Game 2.
Obey Alliance now in our secondary ban phase, focused on the Fafnir and the Daji. Daji, a very important ban, I think. Didn't single-handedly win the game. Pittsburgh Knights in general played very, very well. You had mentioned EmilZy's kind of setup, and the Sanctified Field bait was very strong. But I think anytime Adapting is playing Daji, he is that player that has the potential to just kind of end it. Mercury is very similar, but doesn't have that control aspect that Daji has, or the escapability. And so with that in mind, I love the Daji ban specifically.
Mercury doesn't have the late game control that Daji can provide, but early game,
that's fair.
Maybe more. I mean, Special Delivery does do that pretty well. Adapting has hit or nearly hit so many multi-man sonic booms as of late that I love this pick. I think it can really work.
Thoth and a Ho-Yi. An interesting choice here. Hey, Vinny. An interesting choice here for Obey as they bring out the Hunter. Where do Thoth and Ho-Yi go?
Thoth mid lane for Moswal, Ho-Yi for
Old
Wowy.
school?
Yep.
Old
Yeah,
school style.
Moswal has been a Thoth main through and through for a long, long time. I don't see them taking out of his hands.
If we put teams on likelihood to like switch lane versus play traditional, put a mage in the mid and a hunter in the carry role, I think Obey are probably #1 on the give us the old school.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. I mean, Wowie's willing to play weird stuff. He played the Morrigan pretty well, so you know he has it in him.
Yeah.
But when Thoth gets locked in, you're giving it to Moswal. I don't see it going either way.
And again, I think there's something to be said about a metagame, but there's perhaps more to be said about understanding your strengths. Moswal and Wowy are fantastic at what they've been doing. You see some of these players kind of switch things up. I'm totally fine with Obey keeping it kind of traditional. I don't think this is a world where you have to go the lane swap.
No, I don't think so either. A lot of teams have been making it work. It's really only Dignitas that stuck to it every single set, PK being the next closest.
Sure.
So I think there's certainly wiggle room there. We've seen players play well on Hunters in the long lane recently, so it's not like Wowie's completely throwing away the lane by going with something more traditional.
Game #1, Obey take it by kind of leaning on the prowess of Weaken on Thor in the jungle.
Yep.
They're going to be able to do it again, theoretically. They've got support in the Horus. Is it enough to take the set lead? We'll find out. Finch, Taco, give us the business.
More than happy to, Tom. Thank you and Acro as we move into game #3, one that could very well determine the complexion of the whole rest of this set. Obey back with Weaken on the Thor. Moswal to follow up on the Thoth he's played so well before. Taco, are you a believer here that Obey can grab this win?
It'll be tough. One thing you have to remember with the Pittsburgh Knights is, sure, they let Weaken have the Thor again that he had such a great Game 1 performance on, but PK are definitely one of those teams where the more you play against them, the more difficult it's going to be to actually close out, because they really do just analyze and digest everything so quickly that teams throw at them.
We saw them make the adaptations very quickly in game #2 to what was actually working for Obey at the beginning of that game. I think that you can get a bit lost in that game because it was kind of a stomp in the Knights' favor that Obey had a pretty nice start. So you're right to speak to that ability of them to quickly kind of overcome your strategies. We'll see if it works for them here again in this game, as this Moswal and this Thoth is a bit different. A lot of range from here in this middle lane, a lot of burst damage very quickly. That can be difficult to deal with.
It's mostly just the fact that this is the OG Moswal god in my eyes.
He likes some
because he loves his Thoth all the way, and not only that, but the range, like you just mentioned, is going to be so instrumental here for trying to get these early shutdown kills. In fact, Zyrhoes might get shut down right now. Dive Bomb's going to secure it for the first blood here, going to Obey.
Mineral making the early rotation over to the long lane, and that shuts down a nice kill for Zyrhoes on the Chronos, who I don't think was expecting to be seeing this much action. Looks like EmilZy wants a little bit of turnaround his own right. Weaken uses the beads of the turnaround. That was hot. Almost got the kill. He's going to look for the hammer to get Vote here as well, but just doesn't have it in time. He teleports to it for the second kill for Obey.
Vote wanted it. And it's the second time. Level 2, Vote jumps in, not expecting to get turned on.
Weekend was so ready for it. That was nice, man. Kurt Schreit inspiring some confidence in me over here as he lets him hear it a little bit on the Thor.
It was smart, but it was just so unnecessary from Vote.
Yes, very correct.
It just makes no sense for it. The only reason Vote looks for that play is because he thinks Weekend isn't going to do anything about it, and he should have learned from game 1. You can't just disrespect Weekend like that. He's going to answer back.
I know we give Kurt Schreit a lot of trouble, but he's not bad at Smite. He's good at the game, obviously, if he's playing here at the pro level. So I think that y'all got to make sure that you give my man his due. Now, I do want to point out his counterpart adapting is on Mercury, a pick that he's really liked lately, and he's playing it with the Blink, which is different as Ducky is in some trouble in the solo lane and can't make it back underneath the tower. Adapting completes a nice gank. Even without the Blink, I was trying to highlight, Adapting's been using beads a lot, so that he's chosen Blink here to be more aggressive could be a good indication of how they'll play.
Fortunately enough, though, for Ducky, despite having just been ganked and killed by Adapting, won't be able to lose his blue buff in the process. Just not enough time, and with Mineral rotating to cover for Ducky missing out, I don't think that Deathwalker and Adapting felt too confident about the 2v2 there from two relatively healthy members out of Obey. But it's constant poolings of attention towards different areas on the map that makes this one so much fun for me, Finch, because wherever Obey manages to find a pick, either in the same lane or somewhere fairly close by in one of the side lanes, Pittsburgh Knights are making something happen, and it's usually coming off the back of Adapting.
Adapting's been the facilitator this set. Both of these junglers have been, and I would be surprised if that changed here. I'm actually a bit surprised that Adapting came to solo lane first this time. That's actually been Weekend's MO this set. For him to come over and harass Deathwalker and get Ducky ahead, looks like Adapting's coming back and returning the favor.
Anything you can do, I can do better? That's kind of been King Kenneth's forte for some time in the pro league.
Oh, Wowy.
Been able to hold on to that for a while now. Adapting, though, not level 5, doesn't have the Sonic Boom yet, only the special delivery and Make You Look isn't going to connect either, so no poke damage from Wowy. Just loses an opportunity to be aggressive. Going to cancel that back, though, with a cheeky bounce. Can't ever consider those to be guaranteed in the face of a Ho Yi.
Wowy not letting Adapting get the free back, so that should delay him a good bit, and Mineral is making a rotation over. I don't know if he's intentionally taking this long pathing, but I think he might have avoided that ward right up until now. Looks like Zyrhoes has an idea. Blink into the knockup. That's the beads. The Sunbreaker forces the rewind, and now Zyrhoes is away from the tower and where he wants to be. Stun comes through, but they can't afford to commit any further. That's beads and rewind forced out.
Still two really good things to pull away from that Chronos. Zyrhoes losing out some of his survivability means that he might have to forfeit some of that lane pressure now over to Wowy, but on that same note, it's going to be tough for Wowy to constantly play at Zyrhoes' tower line knowing that Adapting's on that Mercury, and now that Adapting is level 5 and has that Sonic Boom, it's not going to be easy for Wowy without the CC immunity to handle a 2v1 on his own.
No, not at all. We'll see if they want to go for that aggression onto Zyrhoes yet again. I did notice that Mineral warded the Chaos side red buff as if to perhaps come back and look for a cheeky invade. Not going to find it, but he does have the information on when that red buff will be back up the next time. So maybe Obey can be in position for yet another attempt to strip away some farm.
Obey, though, still trailing ever so slightly behind Pittsburgh Knights, and we saw this in Game 2 as well, where Obey leading ever so slightly in the kills department, but not so much anywhere else. These experience gaps have not really taken place here this game in the same way as they did in Game 1, so could be cause for concern until Weekend connects the Anvil of Dawn, and that's another successful pick onto Zyrhoes, who unfortunately just seems to have been made the focal point out of Obey.
They just pick someone, it feels like, at times, and that's the person who's not going to get to have any fun. It was Deathwalker earlier, and now it's Zyrhoes, who's been getting ganked multiple times in a row, constantly under pressure, and it makes it so hard for him to keep up in this lane matchup. And Ho Yi, he does have good boxing potential. He does have really good all-in potential with that Sunbreaker ultimate, so if he gets a good lead, it could become hard for Zyrhoes to stick around.
Adapting now, charging the Sonic Boom. He's going to look for Mineral there in mid. Special delivery won't be able to connect Up to the skies goes Mineral, and he gets it out in time.
He does indeed make it out. Looks like Moswal let loose with the final judgment, and Vote been clipped and brought down quite low. Weaken considering trying to find his way in, but from this position, I just don't think he'll be able to do it. Vote should be A-okay, but that is nuts that Mineral made it out alive.
Vote wisely backing off after the fact, too, realizing that just because no one wound up dying doesn't mean that a PK member couldn't become a casualty focus for Obey on the response. But I am a little bit surprised that Mineral wouldn't die, and it really just comes down to the timing. If Adapting had gotten that special delivery off right away, I think we see an entirely different story, but
Agreed.
CC immunity really can be everything sometimes in Smite.
Good recognition for Mineral to start channeling the ultimate. A ton of wards on the map right now. This game, or this set, really has just come down, it felt like, at time to information and who can make the better rotations, knowing where the opposition is a little bit sooner and can catch them off guard. That's why both these teams have started to invest even more into having some vision around the map and understanding where these two junglers, who've been very, very active, are at.
I want to see a little bit more involvement, though, from Wowy in this game, because this is twice now where Obey have done a pretty solid job at putting Zyrhoes behind and getting Wowy up ahead, but they have a tough time, I think, continuing to try and play through that dual lane due to Adapting and Deathwalker doing a great job at spreading the attention from Obey and forcing them to kind of look elsewhere than that long lane so that they can buy Zyrhoes a little bit of time for catch-up. But if Wowy starts getting some of these early rotations in with this kind of a lead, he could be that damage differentiator to just overwhelm PK.
I agree, but I just don't think of Ho Yi when I think of a hunter that really abuses his lead. Do you want to see them looking for gold furies and forcing fights? As EmilZy forces a fight of his own. Weaken, though, does have the beads, gets him away from special delivery, and he's out. But where would you want to see him trying to play around Wowy?
I would just want to see Wowy, not even necessarily a hard commit to these gold furies, but I think Obey have enough objective burst and shred as Ducky wisely evades, but the dive going to come through from Adapting, actually, and Ducky gives him the alley-oop.
And manages to find a stun underneath, so Deathwalker ends up quite low. Survives the two-man gank all on his own. That sets up for his team to look for the red buff invade. There's some nice play from Ducky.
That was cute. He
nice.
just was not having it from Adapting.
The fatal strike was nuts. Like the awareness to get away from the sonic boom.
Hey, you've got to expect it at this stage now, since Adapting has already made a couple of visits to that solo side. Would not be surprised if Ducky was actually aware even. I mean, there is a ward on that choke point now, just on top of the blue buff. Zyrhoes could be in some trouble. Wowy looking to get aggressive.
This is Wowy, though, using that aggression that you were asking for. Zyrhoes trying to hold onto the ultimate, and it works. Gets the rewind off and has repositioned back. And now Wowy might be in some trouble. He's been rooted, forced to use the beads. There's the epic uppercut, and Zyrhoes wants to get in close for the follow-up, but can't quite. Everyone makes it out of that one alive.
I can't believe that Zyrhoes nearly dies off of the most intentional ricochet I've ever seen. Wowy plowed that one from the start.
Yeah, that was all geometry. Spent a little bit of extra time in maths. Did Wowy, and he's able to set up that ricochet. I mean, that's, I got to imagine that's the Jade Emperor's crown, right? That made the difference there in that fight.
And I think the CDR boots prioritization here for Zyrhoes, although this is fairly standard now. I think for most Chronos players is that they favor the mana and that 10% cooldown reduction, since Pythag's piece has become such a prevalent mage item to pick up. Here, though, I understand the preference for Zyrhoes to go for that physical defense item. The Jade Emperor is just bringing a lot more, especially when you actually do manage to survive solely because of it.
Just barely. Giving you the prots and the aura reducing their power, and I think it made a big difference there in keeping Wowy from being able to find that kill off that ricochet that somehow managed to find its way to Zyrhoes. Just filthy. Weaken, he wants a little bit more around this red buff. Vote is the target. He's been stunned. Beads have already come out from him. There's the leap as Adapting lines up a sonic boom but doesn't find much. Wowy takes care of Vote early on. Zyrhoes is rotated in, but he has to immediately go into a rewind, and the red buff stripped away.
Weaken gonna get a small heal off that red buff. Mineral could be in some trouble now. does still have the Horus dash, going to give a little bit of a heal to Moswal as well, but Deathwalker rotating on the backside, going to spot Wowy out first. Mineral should be able to make it out of here, no problem though.
Nice.
Horus ultimate for the disengage. Gold Fury though, could be up for grabs.
Squeaky clean from Obey to be able to make it out of that one. That's the kind of stuff that we're going to have to see a little bit more from them. But with just one pick and one red buff invade, they really have not been able to chain multiple of these good fights together yet. But they're showing us that they've got plenty of potential to win any given fight. They just got to start kind of linking those wins together.
Hey, game one mostly came as a victory secure from the back of these little fight victories, and that has pretty much been the storyline here for game three. A lot of little wins for Obey all over the place, but some of them have come with a price, and I think that mostly the big difference maker has just been Obey's discipline.
Obey had it in game one. I think we lost some of that in game two. That's part of why that one slipped away from them. Let's see if they can get back to it here in this third game, where there's yet again a ton of attention coming Zyrhoes' way. Zyrhoes does still have the beat and the Aegis if he ends up needing it, but it's Weekend who's in trouble. Without a hammer, he's a sitting duck. Zyrhoes does use the Aegis and looks for the turnaround here on the Wowy, who has to dive bomb away.
Wowy recognizing there's really nothing more for him to do. Mineral will be backing him up just in case, but EmilZy and Zyrhoes more than happy to just take the life of Weekend. And Moswal with the patience. A little bit of a backstep there, I believe, against Vote.
Yeah, they both graze each other with their abilities, so no harm, no foul, I suppose. Everyone makes it back out of there. But this could be harm for Zyrhoes. There are the beads as Mineral blinks in to start the engagement, but can't find much. And Zyrhoes survives yet another gank. He's been under constant harassment.
And it's largely due to the fact that Adapting has put so much attention towards this solo side of the map. It's giving Obey the open entryway to just harass Zyrhoes off cooldown. It's exactly what they've been doing. I'm actually a pretty big fan of this as well, because if there's any one member on the map that I think Obey absolutely need to shut down, it's this Chronos. If Chronos makes it late game, this match becomes very difficult, even with Moswal on the Thoth, to try and close out.
But Obey are holding even with the Knights for their third game in a row. They've been able to stay right within striking distance throughout these first 15 minutes. They're just trying to secure their own blue buff here. They've got 4 members rotating over. I don't think Deathwalker expected it would be this kind of welcoming party coming from him. Lord of the Afterlife gets him away, and that should spell the end of the aggression.
Ducky gonna collect his blue buff on the backside of that fight, and well, Deathwalker probably just happy that he didn't wind up dying there, but hard to die when you have a Lord of the Afterlife as your escape option. Mineral, on the other hand, looking to go deep. EmilZy actually gonna get caught up from that Thor wall, and now Wowy actually moving in, trying to play aggressive.
I like that ricochet. Vote still doesn't. I'm getting hit by the Anvil of Dawn, but a perfect epic uppercut from EmilZy sets up for an easy kill for Zyrhoes. Final Judgment does not get much as Adapting can't find the special delivery, but Mineral gets caught trying to dash. He's going to fall as well as Vote finds yet another kill. Now it's Wowy in trouble. 3 for the Pittsburgh Knights in a row, and they're going to head right for the Gold Fury.
All of that because of EmilZy, by the
What a
way.
nuts
The
epic uppercut.
perfectly timed epic uppercut, and that's going to be the problem now for Weekend, is this Kumbhakarna, because if EmilZy's just going to ult him, every single time he comes crashing down from that Anvil of Dawn, there's nothing for Vote or even Zyrhoes to really try and worry about, because it's just impossible for Weekend to follow up with any of his own damage, much less his teammates when he's out of the picture.
And that one felt forced. You talked about the discipline from Obey Alliance previously. I don't know that we saw it there in that fight. I mean, I like the idea, trying to see if you can catch them around the red buff, especially because Vote just stole Obey Alliance's red buff right before it, but instead they end up over-committing. And it's not just that, but I mean, the Final Judgment was off the mark too.
Yeah.
That fight, a lot of pieces didn't line up for Obey.
That one, you hate to see it.
Yes.
That's about all that can really be said there from Moswal. A little unfortunate. Just sometimes they're right in front of you, and somehow it still goes way off into left field. But hey, it happens to the best of us, man.
Perhaps Moswal, I think, predicting. I don't feel too bad if you miss those shots if you're covering the escape option, and that is what he did. The way that would get him out of the fight, Moswal aimed it that way, so, you know.
No juke is the best juke.
Yeah, sometimes
Say it all the
is.
time.
Going straight. We expect him to lean towards the escape path. Playing towards the out. I don't hate it too much there.
But more importantly, I think that last little engagement is some pretty important insight as to what can and will probably go wrong if Obey have even the slightest bit of a slip-up on their initiation, because they wanted that red buff, they wanted the invade and the fight. I think they were more so after the pick on the vote than anything else, and maybe Zyrhoes if they kill vote fast enough, but if EmilZy is just going to play babysitter for his carries, even if that means reserving that epic uppercut solely for weekend off those Anvil of Dawns, then so be it, because it's working.
They've been very willing to play it slowly, have the Knights here so far. They've got this Chronos that's going to be pocketed by the Kumbhakarna, and crit being built by adapting on a Mercury to rely on as this game gets into the later and later stages, which I think means they can afford to play things slow. I know they're going to be going into a Thoth late game, but the way the Knights have drafted, I think I do favor them.
The only real concern that I have for adapting right now is how well he can maneuver and position these sonic booms and special deliveries, because this Thor wall could become a major problem on some of the more obvious objective plays if adapting isn't careful. And if you lose the sonic boom because you face plant straight into that Thor stun, it's not going to be a fun time for the Pittsburgh Knights.
That could cut some into the value, but I would consider myself still purchasing as adapting lurks in the jungle on the left-hand side. With Wowy this far underneath his own tower, I don't know that he's looking for a gank. No, he does. Still have the Sonic Boom charged up. Weekend comes in, but the Sonic Boom is right there waiting for him. Weekend barely makes it back to the tier 1, but who else but EmilZy is here to clean it up, waiting on him. Can't hit him with the actual groggy strike, so Weekend still lives for now, but he is trapped in no man's land.
Mineral going to come through and provide a little bit of team sustain. Moswal rotating over also. This 2-1 tower could be under threat now by PK if Obey aren't careful, but Wowy still has both of his actives wanting to get the beads, or the Aegis does come off in time.
And Mineral's there to back him up. That play with EmilZy where he comes in a little bit too soon and Weekend's able to avoid getting hit by that root. I mean, I wonder if he had the mez or even an ability to close the gap a little bit quicker with that first ability. I don't know if the delayed channel route was the play.
Well, Weekend wasn't in range for the mez. He spotted out EmilZy almost immediately.
That's what I'm saying, like you used the first to close the gap, right? His first ability? Like to dash up on him?
Maybe. Might have already used it, though, just to get there in the first place. Would really have to have just been riding along with EmilZy to know for sure, but I definitely think that the groggy strike in that circumstance was probably the most likely way to kill Weekend. I'm honestly more impressed by the fact that Adapting's made you look wasn't able to seal the deal there.
That's right, couldn't get that initial kill. Clearly, though, Adapting had that read that the gank from Weekend would be on the way. He was so patient with the Sonic Boom to make sure that he kept the Zyrhoes alive on that left-hand side. And in the end, Obey Alliance don't find very much of anything, though they are going to at least trade some blows here with Deathwalker, though. Taking out level 19 Osiris doesn't seem likely.
Sometimes you can also just read your hunters to know what's about to happen next. And for Zyrhoes, I think that the flashlight probably went off over his head the second that Wowy isn't using his beads off of the stop time, nor was Wowy really trying to do much of anything to escape from Zyrhoes. He just kept kind of egging him on closer and closer to that tower line until he was eventually within striking distance for Weekend.
Evade and Punish doesn't find much, as it looks like we do have a pause coming out here from Zyrhoes, so we'll work on getting everything sorted out here for the pros in just a moment. But that last fight, I think, is starting to show where some of these cracks are here for Obey and how they can't quite seem to clean these fights up against the Knights.
And that could be problematic, I think. But for right now, things are still relatively under control. And by control, I mean Obey isn't out of the picture just yet.
Not yet,
I definitely think that they're still within striking distance of Pittsburgh Knights. But if they keep having these shutdown effects off that Anvil of Dawn, I mean, that's a big portion of their team fighting capability that Weekend just has not been able to provide in these last couple of skirmishes.
And that's got to be because of EmilZy, man, on this Kumbhakarna. He makes it so difficult to effectively dive onto the backline, whether it's the mez or the root or the epic uppercut to get you up and out of the fight for a while, too. There's so many tools at his disposal to disrupt that it's made it hard for Weekend to get back there and do any damage.
It has been fun, though, kind of watching the trade-offs between these two teams, because at least for Weekend, it can definitely become a little bit frustrating to constantly be being interrupted during that Anvil of Dawn channeling, because you do everything that you can to just land the ult in the first place, and you think that that's the hardest part, but no, it's actually the follow-up that's given Obey most of their problems.
And remember who this Kumbhakarna is protecting. Zyrhoes is on the Chronos in this game, which is only getting scarier and scarier as the game goes on, truly just gaining free power from existing as the game goes on, which is going to make life even harder for Obey. I'm not saying the window's closed, but it does feel like it's closing, and they don't have a whole lot of time if they want to turn this game in their favor.
Probably the main turning point that I'm noticing now is, and it's starting to fall a little bit more onto Moswal in my mind,
I agree.
because this Thoth with the final judgment, that's kind of the say-all be-all when it comes to objective secure typically. Not to, scoff at Chronos with the time rift, stop time, or even this Anhur, so to say, because I think Desert Fury can also be pretty decent when it comes to objective control, but I just don't really think that Pittsburgh Knights can really factor anything as guaranteed until Moswal is out of the picture.
That's right. You always have to worry about that final judgment that could be coming out from Moswal. We're going to take some time to get this worked on so we can try and get these players back into the game. We'll have an update for you on the other side of this break. All right, again, apologies for that short delay. We're happy to have you back here at the SPL as we get right back into the action. Obey up against the Knights, and you should not have missed anything. Let everybody right back into the swing of things.
And Weekend looking for a cutoff there. Instead, it's going to be Mineral blinking in. Pittsburgh Knights trying to pull this Primal Fury right underneath the noses of Obey, but it's not going to be that easy. Mineral on the pursuit. And vision still established heavily in favor of Pittsburgh Knights around this Primal Fury. But that's not to say that Obey won't choose to stick around also, just to make sure that there isn't anything funny going down.
Well, it is good work there by Mineral, but obviously we do have another pause coming in here for the Knights. So we're working on it here on our end and talk. We can try and dive a little bit more here into this game again about what Obey can do. You were saying that you didn't feel like this was entirely out of reach for them, but I do feel like they kind of have to be on the back foot and be responsive here. I don't know if they could be the ones starting these fights.
For sure, and that's why I think preventing the Pittsburgh Knights from outright taking that Primal Fury is a starting point for sure for Obey, but it's not going to be easy from this point forward still. They can't feel very comfortable departing from that general area of the Primal Fury just because Pittsburgh Knights do have a relatively strong composition for shredding it. I mean, that's to be expected when a Chronos is involved, but it's still just, it's kind of fickle because you don't want to shoot Mineral back in there either, and PK, well, they get that Primal Fury for free anyway. Obey just backed off a little bit too far, and that was all the time that PK needed to actually kill that objective.
Well, consider it burned. The Knights shred through it way too quickly, and I'm just happy that Mineral made it in and back out. Honestly, if you're an Obey Alliance fan, he's had some trouble every time he's had to step a little bit too far forward and try and fulfill the frontlining role. Getting blown up by this Knights roster. Mez from EmilZy doesn't find much, but the Knights are going to head right over to the Pyromancer. They want to try and take this 7,000 gold lead and force Obey to fight into it.
Ducky, though, still looking just to make sure that fire isn't going to be pulled out right, and sure enough, Pyromancer Primal will be the only two objectives that Pittsburgh Knights take for now, but it's the gold disparity that's opened up that I'm really starting to take note of here, Finch, because 8,000 gold, you are certainly feeling that still at 22 minutes in.
Especially with adapting, having finished the Rage into the Deathbringer, a huge power spike for this Mercury if he's able to bring all this crit. And there's really not anyone on Obey who can afford to step up to it. Not to mention how much it helps you shred through objectives. Fire Giant being started now by the Knights. It's just Ducky nearby. No chance to strip it away. The Knights have come back into the game with a fire underneath them. Ducky now in some trouble too as he's been hit by the epic uppercut. Zyrhoes finds the kill and the Knights in control.
There wasn't anything Ducky could have possibly done to avoid that, except maybe Fatal Strike immediately before the epic uppercut can come through, but this is brutal right now, though, Finch. 5 members strong, and all with Fire Giant to boot. Obey, I think, had the right idea, though, just split pushing, because trying to take a 5v5 or a 4v5 underneath their Phoenix probably won't go their way either.
Right side Phoenix is going to be forfeit. Looks like Obey will just take the tier 2s, but they have to start backing now. Oh, the Knights are not going to actually make a push. They're backing as well. So perhaps at the very least one can stay and try and grab the tier 2 in mid. No, even Mineral is backing, so they'll get one tier 2 in duo and a couple tier 1s in trade for the tier 2 in Phoenix and Right. Not great, but better than nothing.
Every little bit of gold counts at this point, though, for Obey. They are just scrounging everywhere they can to try and find experience and gold to just catch up now to the rest of Pittsburgh Knights. The experience really is not that awful, all things considered. I think that for the gold gap that had opened up for Pittsburgh Knights, typically you see experience in that same boat, but it's not going to be the case here today. And Wowy, if you can get this Titan's Bane finished off in time, that could be a huge saving grace here in that Sunbreaker, more importantly than actually the autos.
A lot of pressure on Wowy to execute when the team needs him most. It looks as though they've got Wowy pushing up in right, so they won't have to worry about the fire minions for a bit. But he needs to hurry up and complete this back so he can be here for the defense. Deathwalker has already moved into Phoenix range. Weaken charging. The ultimate is up in the air. That's Frenzy popped by Obey. They want to take this fight right here and now. They've successfully pushed the Knights outside of Phoenix range, but Mineral's taking too much damage. That's why Ducky moved in, but Vote has already claimed the scalp by dropping the Desert Fury. The rest of Obey can barely hold him off as Zyrhoes gets chunked, and Wowy's able to complete him before the rewind gets off.
That is a massive pick, but it might just get worse here for Obey if they're not careful. Sunbreaker is down. Adapting, though, is already taken out Wowy. Adapting's got a double kill onto Weaken. Adapting still looking for more.
They can start to push in. They can surge through this mid-Phoenix. They're taking their time, finally grabbed that mid-Phoenix along with the right side when an Obey Alliance did everything they could to at least find the pick onto Zyrhoes, but it's just not enough. In terms of actually shredding down this tower, Vote and Adapting will do plenty on their own.
The worst part is, Finch, Obey did everything right there.
Yeah.
They did exactly what they were supposed to do, and Pittsburgh Knights still beat them down for it. Now, without Zyrhoes, it's going to be much harder to see just left side Phoenix without any minions, but halfway down already. Except Pittsburgh Knights look as though they'll be forced into the disengage, some of these Moswal pokeouts off the hieroglyphic wall.
No flat pen for Adapting, so it is going to be much harder for him to shred through the Phoenix. Mineral has the Horus ultimate that is forcing the disengage of the Knights. Deathwalker forced into the Lord of the Afterlife to retreat. And Obey still surging forward as if they want to chase, but I think they'll likely give this up. I don't know how much more they can hope to find in the jungle. They'll have to settle for at least keeping one Phoenix standing.
There's just so much slow from PK between stop time, Kumbhakarna, mezzes, and roots out of the Groggy Strike. There's also Votes, Obelisk. It's tough for Obey to just outright barrel on after Pittsburgh Knights. And Adapting might even be able to pick Mineral in the process here. No, it's Moswal who's going to be made the focal point instead.
Sonic Boom into the epic uppercut, and Moswal's a sitting duck. 657 crit says hello as Moswal sits in the fountain. But the Knights are not going to keep surging just yet. They're playing this patient, trying to decide the call they want to make.
Finch.
But they are indeed going to start pushing in. Ducky's waiting on the flank behind, and the Knights maybe weren't ready for it. Weaken comes in as well. There are the Suns, and Zero gets collapsed on. The Chronos has been removed, and Obey keep the base standing for now.
Pittsburgh Knights thought that left Phoenix was a freebie since Moswal died. And they made it obvious, and Obey kind of taking a page out of PK Knight's book here and actually looking for the fight when they're on the back foot.
It's a thin silver lining, though, Taco, when you consider just how much Obey have lost. The right side Phoenix has now respawned, but mid is a good ways away, and the Fire Giant will be back here in under 10 seconds. Obey really can't afford to leave their base to go defend it either. They just have to desperately hold on and hope they can defend on one of these weakened Phoenixes.
Adapting, though, now with the fully finished Magai's Cloak, it's going to be even more difficult to try and stop this Mercury in its tracks, because even if you land the CC you need to, that's only going to proc that Magai's Cloak, so it's only just begun in my eyes, Finch, as far as Obey overcoming the Pittsburgh Knights in this third game.
Take a look at these player damage charts, though, Taco. I mean, Moswal, Ducky, and Wowy are doing a ton of damage up until this point. More than everyone else except for Deathwalker, and it hasn't really amounted to much. This Knights team might just be too beefy as Deathwalker establishes the front line, drops a tether, but he's at half HP already, stunned as well, and Minerals up in the air. They might want to try and chase this while Deathwalker's low. Weaken takes to the sky as well with the Anvil of Dawn. EmilZy has been fractured off from the group. That's the epic uppercut, and into the Sleepy Time passive. Adapting comes through with his own ultimate, but they've already lost the Kumbhakarna.
Purification beads, though, off on Weaken. Ducky now going to be the one surging forward. That pulls Weaken forward.
Zyrhoes!
The final judgment, and Wowy finds the last hit. Zyrhoes is out of here.
Suddenly, Obey have found 2 critical kills, taking away the Chronos, taking away the Kumbhakarna, and I just said I didn't think they could afford to fight off their Phoenixes. They could do better than that. They found a 2 for 0.
And they're going to get all 3 of their Phoenixes up in the process. Adapting actually getting chased out now momentarily from Mineral and Ducky. Finch with this mid-Phoenix up and running. Obey could very well look to take this enhanced Fire Giant into their own hands. And I say enhanced because we're only about a minute away from that upgraded FG. And I don't think that Obey are going to wait for it to hit 30, but I think it'll just be around that 30-minute mark by the time Obey gets a chance to head that direction. Because Zyrhoes, even though he'll be respawned for it, won't have those purification beats for the next minute and some change.
I don't know, Taco. Obey are playing this so slow that I feel like this window is starting to close a bit. I mean, I know they won that last fight, but a heads-up fight up against Knights doesn't feel that great right now for Obey. They'd love to have some slight advantages aside from just the beads down on Zyrhoes. And at this point, I think they probably have given up on taking this FG. They might take a fight once the Knights are on it, but I doubt Obey can start it.
Moswal was the real hero of that last engagement, though. That final judgment clipping Zyrhoes was the only reason why Wowy was even able to find that kill in the first place. But if Obey can consistently pick off Zyrhoes before he has a chance to get that rewind off, or immediately after, the problem is they're spending so much cooldowns just trying to kill this Chronos outright that they don't really have a whole lot left in the tank to deal with adapting and vote.
But I feel like Obey needs a reset here. There's no reason for them to be the aggressors in this situation. Time is only good while they wait for their Phoenixes to heal back up a little bit, and they get a little bit more time to get some items online. It's the Knights who want to try and make advantage of their 13 gold lead.
Well, it's also the Knights who have a pretty significant advantage as well, just dropping that enhanced Fire Giant in the first place because they've got the crit on their side. EmilZy, though, going to find his target. Groggy Strike onto Wowy now. Aegis has been used, but to the skies comes Mineral, and Deathwalker going to get knocked back for it.
Deathwalker getting a little bit more than knocked back. Final judgment from Moswal hits home, and Deathwalker removed. But Ducky will be joining him. It's solo laner for solo laner at this point, as Vote has to jump back as well. Moswal's damage is certainly starting to shine through at this point. He's second on his team, third in the game overall. His Thoth's here to play.
And Moswell's about to play leapfrog through the player damage charts because
I think so too.
If these fights keep staying the way that they have been, it's only a matter of time before the Thoth advantages take over, and the damage charts are tight. Even the team fight recaps, Finch, only about 600-700 really being the separating factor here. That's pretty much one auto from adapting, if you think about it.
Not a ton separates these two teams right now, and even though the Knights did come away having made a little bit more gold and experience in that time, it's not so much about the Knights creating a gap between themselves and Obey anymore. It's about how close are the Knights getting towards capped. There's still boots that are available, so they're not there yet. Still relics to upgrade and potions to buy. That's still a ways away, but the lead does mean less and less once everyone gets 6 slotted.
Also, it's not necessarily the enhanced Fire Giant that's going to be the only ideal objective to take right now. That Oni Fury is always worth fighting over, no matter what stage of the game we are at. And
that's the hammer.
Obey, they know that adapting, he can definitely siege that Oni, no problem if he's left to his own devices, and that's exactly why Obey, they want to try and interfere. Weekend's already up in the air, but this Oni could drop before he does.
Mineral's on his way to this too. They want to try and collapse onto the Knights before they're ready. Ducky has suddenly shown up as well, but they haven't really put out much damage. The Knights have been able to disengage successfully and grab the Fury.
But looks as though EmilZy is backing the base. Not sure if that info has been telegraphed to Obey or not. Still 3 members from Obey making their way on over that enhanced Fire Giant pit just to ensure that Pittsburgh Knights don't look for the EFG in the same fashion that they did that Oni.
So the Knights will come back to establish control over this Fire Giant yet again. But I think regardless of how this ends, once more I must give credit to Obey. coming 33 minutes up against the Knights, and it's this close. But this defense will be difficult. The Fire Giant already low. The Knights have grabbed it, and now they found themselves a target. Ducky isolated. Fatal Strike allows him to reposition. Zyrhoes has used the rewind way in the back of the fight. I'm not sure if that's what he wanted, but adapting deletes Wowy. Big time crits. Send him back to base. Next up is Mineral. A double kill for the Mercury's. Adapting makes his presence known.
Hoyi, even with his passive, never really stood a chance up against that Mercury. Purification beads a split second too late, and adapting was just too close. Wowy never gets a dive bomb off, and just like that, right Phoenix is out of here, Finch. Mid Phoenix could very well be next. Pittsburgh Knights continue to play this one carefully, because I think they've already learned their lessons and don't feel like getting burned by Obey yet again.
Obey are not going to make things easy for them. Adapting, lurking to the side as he often does. Blink right towards Moswal to force the Aegis. Mage a look there as well. Mid Phoenix melts underneath the pressure, and the Knights burst all the way into the Titan room. Weaken has to use the Aegis. He is going up, but look at the Titan. It's way too low. The Knights take game number 3 in 34 minutes, and now they're on game point.
Pretty smart from EmilZy at the end there too. Moswal was charging that final judgment, kind of playing a game of chicken with the rest of PK, see if he can maybe force them back. Instead, just eats an epic uppercut to the face for it. But a really well-played match there from Pittsburgh Knights to close it out, Finch. I think that as soon as Adapting was able to finally isolate Wowy, even for a split second, that's really all it takes when dealing with that Mercury in the late game.
I agree, man. It's an impressive performance from both teams, Taco, I have to be honest. I think that Obey did great to stretch that game as far as they did, considering how far behind they were. But obviously, at this point, the Knights are the top team here right now, at least in this set. Up 2-1. We're going to take a quick break and see if Obey can bounce back.
Respawn, the official gaming chair of the SMITE Pro League.
Hi-Res Expo, the highlight of every year. You don't want to miss it. November 15th through the 17th. The URL's easy. Hi-Res Expo. Add a .com on it. You can grab your tickets and show up. We'll see if Pittsburgh Knights are going to make it. We'll see if Obey are going to make it. That's what we're here for right now. Pittsburgh Knights have put themselves forward. There was a moment, Ryan, where it looked like Obey might have been able to kind of take advantage.
Yep.
But then we saw the swing back, and it's 2-1.
Yeah, I mean, at the beginning of the game starts pretty well for Obey Alliance. I mean, an early gank in that long lane gets a kill onto Zyrhoes. He gets set behind a little bit. Then Weekend is able to pick up a kill in the early game. And you're starting to feel good for Obey. You know, this Thor can start rolling again. But Pittsburgh Knights shut the door pretty well after that. A lot of objective focus. This upgraded Frenzy from EmilZy ends up being a big difference maker in this game. I mean, they burned 2 Fire Giants before Obey was ever able to get close. A couple overextensions and the like by the boys of Obey Alliance. This is when the game was still very close at 15 minutes. This starts to lean it back in favor of PK, and they didn't really relinquish it after that. Now, they did have a bit of a scare. I mean, they break the base, they get a couple Phoenixes, then all of a sudden it looks like it might be time for Obey to start making the comeback. I mean, we felt like the game was over. At this point, this is where it felt like PK was going to be able to control it from here on out. But then Obey get a couple picks around Fire Giant. They extend the game. They make you feel like they've still got a shot, but ultimately end up a little bit short.
You know, it's interesting. I think this is a better performance from Obey Alliance than we saw yesterday against E United.
No doubt.
It is. I am baffled. I think the team is probably a little bit baffled as well.
Well, I think it's pretty simple. To me, it's exactly what we talked about at the very early of the set. There's no stakes. I don't think they feel as much pressure today as they did yesterday. E United, in their minds, probably an attainable win. You know, a game that, in their minds, I mean, as a player, you feel like you can win every game.
Okay.
You still have realistic expectations. Mm-hmm. If I were in Obey's shoes, I would have gone into yesterday's set feeling like we are playing better, we have gotten a lot of good practice in, we are going to beat E United. And then I would have been disappointed when we didn't.
Sure.
Going into today's set, following that disappointment against E United, we're going, we'll see what happens. You know, we still think we can win, but we don't expect to win. And I think that changes the way you play.
At what moment does that change, though? You win game number 1. You win the game.
Yeah.
And then you go, do you reassess everything that you entered with? Do you change? Like, and then game number 2, you lose, and then you're like, all right, snap back to reality. Game number 3, we almost had it. And then they took it. Then we had another moment. Like, all of a sudden, this is a lot realer than it once was.
Yeah, and that's where it gets scary to me because, like you said, you come in loose, right? No expectations. We win game 1. You immediately kind of tense up a little bit. You're like, oh, okay, well, we got to focus. And it's like, no, you just have to do exactly what you just did in game 1. And then a game like this, I think, reinforces that, all right, let's tighten up, let's focus up, you know, get real serious and all that kind of stuff. And I just don't really personally believe that's the way that you always find your victories. I think that having a loose, fun environment, being able to joke around in comms, you know, if you get destroyed by someone, I want to hear, you know, wow, that guy just worked me. You know, like that never bothered me as a player, and I think that it really does. You know, if you work someone else, I want to hear about that too. You know, I want to hear about how they're trash compared to you, you're the best, all this kind of stuff. I'm here for all that, and it's really about staying loose. And it's so much easier to do that when you come in with no expectations. As soon as Obey started to have some success, I'm worried that they tense up and they start to feel that pressure and feel that anticipation of, yo, it'd be really sick if we beat PK here. You know, you start thinking about all that kind of stuff. You have to stay grounded in the moment. You have to just realize what got you that first game win anyways.
Yeah, I think that's a big deal. Mineral coming in as a very fresh rookie. We've got a couple of other newer players, but they've been here for a number of weeks, maybe jumped in phase number 1. This is a phase 2 fresh-faced rookie, and I think that's the type of player who absolutely benefits from what you're talking about, this looser atmosphere.
No doubt. I think that really helps you. And some players don't thrive in that environment. They'd much rather, you know, no jokes. We're keeping it real tight. We're trying to, you know, we're thinking about everything. If we don't have anything going on that's very important, I want complete silence so I can focus.
Sure.
That's just, you know, that's why finding the other 4 members of your team that fit well with you and are really good at SMITE game is a difficult task.
With that in mind, I think Obey are not that team. I think they're the kind of the former team that you were talking about. Moswal is a quiet guy, but in general, jovial is a word I would use for him, knowing him kind of off the field, off the screen. He's just like, hey man, I'm here to have a good time. I mean, we watched him step away from competitive because he didn't want to join a team that he wasn't going to be kind of chilling with.
Right.
And here he is, you know, Weekend has always been that guy. I mean, you want to cheer for him or boo him, he's just going to laugh about it and look for the plays. Ducky, very similar. I think this is a real clean team, at least being on the same page as far as approach to the game. Wowy's just happy to finally be playing the game. Wowy seems to always kind of miss the team. Glad to be on Obey. So we're jumping into the picks right away here for game number 4. Bans already done. Pittsburgh sticking to the Geb ban that we've seen so many times. Obey notably banning out the Thor. So the set already gone. Obey will prioritize the Osiris, something that Deathwalker has always turned to in a moment of need.
I don't mind this from Obey. It's a big takeaway. Normally I'm not a big fan of picking something like Osiris that slots in really well to a lot of different compositions with that first overall selection. It feels like a waste at times, but when Deathwalker has ran this many team fights in a row with it, it seems like a perfectly fine takeaway for me. Pittsburgh Knights have a couple of options now. On this back end, they can take away the Erlang Shen if they'd like. They can go back to the Chronos for Zyrhoes.
Olorun.
We can go with Horus. You can go with Olorun. You've got a lot of options. I wouldn't mind Anhur and Horus together here. I wouldn't mind getting your backline set and Anhur Chronos. I think that either way, PK is probably feeling pretty comfortable. Chronos is already banned. Excuse me. So Obey took that away. So Soul is the next natural selection. Get your backline. We're going safe. This is really less about we want Soul right here, right now. You know, we really need it. And more, we don't want to pick our front line yet because we don't know what Obey is going to throw at us. We know we can pick Soul and stay nice and safe. Let's see what Obey is going to go.
That's a good point. I visibly made a face like Soul second, but I think what you brought up, it's less about choosing Soul and more about not choosing, keeping your whether they're secret selections or they're going to be counter selections to what Obey bring to the party.
Right. It's passing priority is what it is.
Fafnir and Merlin going to join forces with Osiris here. And already this is a nice looking draft. Definitely going to be interesting watching Mineral on Fafnir again. All eyes on the rookie support and his god pool. That's why we see the Geb ban consistently from Pittsburgh Knights. They're really testing this rookie. And when we talk about that, I don't ever mind it. I don't think you're doing the wrong thing by limiting the rookie. Make him prove it, and then later on, if you continue to ban into the god pool, then you're making a mistake. But right now, make him prove it, and I like this choice. Pittsburgh, King Arthur to Deathwalker.
Now, the Fafnir takeaway is really that. It's a takeaway to make sure that EmilZy can't get it before the second ban phase. You already have 2 auto attackers with Anhur Soul. I think that would have been pretty potent in this lineup.
Merlin, did you miss an opportunity to select the Olorun watching how Obey has used it against the Pittsburgh team fight?
Not necessarily. I mean, I really wouldn't have minded an Olorun pick in that slot either. Pairs pretty well with Fafnir. It's fine. I just think it's less safe. It's more about your team fight. Merlin has much better pick potential. Still a great team fighter. I'm okay with the Merlin selection in that slot.
You know, it's interesting. As I asked that question leading because I thought that Olorun might have been the better choice. But thinking back to the broadcast, Taco said something very interesting in that Obey got their win off of many little engagements that then culminated into like 1 or 2 larger team fights. But those smaller engagements were really important for Obey. And if you look at smaller engagements, that's Merlin, baby. You look at larger engagements, that's the Olorun. So I like that choice. Obey, second round of bans, no adapting. Pittsburgh looking towards the carry, the hunter class, the basic attackers. Anhur Soul and King Arthur. Adapting obviously needs a choice, and Najah just might be it. Not sure that it's not for EmilZy, but we'll keep an eye on it.
Now, Obey has been banning Ganesh in the first phase a lot so far today against EmilZy, and it's looking like this is a good Ganesh game.
Especially with the Terra Jungle.
Yeah, that's certainly something that you want to get that silence for. I love Ganesh against Fafnir. He transforms. I drop Dharmic Pillars. I bug zap you. You die. It's easy setup for yourself. I think Ganesh is good against Merlin. A lot of channeled abilities in the Fire one and the fact that you want to change stance and flicker a lot of the time. Silence shuts that down. I don't know if this Najah is for EmilZy. I'd imagine it is, because they've been last picking Kenneth's got a decent amount today, but I kind of want to see that Najah in the jungle and Ganesh for EmilZy.
That's what I think. I think this was a flex pick, and I love Ro if that's the case. Bring this Najah out and give it to EmilZy, unless they go the Terra jungle, in which case, give me Ganesh. This is Ganesh just wonderfully broke down the Merlin and the Fafnir. Also, Terra, she needs to use her ability to break open the monolith, and there it is. The Ganesh choice, I think, is can I say perfect? I think it's
really
perfect
good here.
here.
It's really
beautiful.
good, no doubt about it. And I'm a little surprised that Obey, I mean, if you're so willing to ban Ganesh top 3 every single game so far this set, it feels like, and then you pick 3 gods that 2 of which the Ganesh is really good against already, and then you're planning on picking Terra Jungle, or at least it's in your mind, why not ban it right there? I'm a little surprised. The Kali ban in particular, the Daji adapting already showed you.
Sure.
We all know that adapting can play Kali. It's not like, you know, that's a what are they doing sort of ban. I just think that if you're picking Xbalanque, you're picking Terra, these are gods that Ganesh can continue to prey on. It already was good against the rest of your draft. Feel like they may have missed that one.
Shibi also, there are very few characters. Xbalanque's dash, the first half isn't CC immune, the second is. Ganesh with that 1-frame startup. We'll see if it's enough. Obey taking on the Pittsburgh Knights. It could be game. Let's go to Finch.
Obey coming into a critically important game, playing nothing else but Terra Jungle. If you want any more proof that Weekend does believe in this pick completely, well, you're getting it right here, right now. Moswal going to be on the Merlin to go along with him. I think that they've got a chance as long as Weekend can deliver on this pick.
But that last point that Aggro brought up on the desk, Finch, I can't help but heavily agree with him. EmilZy gets this Ganesh in that last pick of the picks and bans phase, and it's such a strong selection choice. The Dharmic Pillars, the Silence, and I'm mostly looking towards this Dharmic Pillars because there aren't really efficient ways for Obey to cleanse themselves of that slow either.
Or to get safely out of it. This Ganesh is in a prime position to do well, and we don't get to see much of him. Ganesh gets banned often, he and Khepri both. We'll see if EmilZy can show exactly why Obey were afraid of this pick. I mean, it seems like one that they were aware of. You know, they've been banning before, and then it ends up catching them perhaps off guard a bit in this matchup.
Well, I'm almost surprised. If anything, why not look to just give it to Mineral instead? But Obey seem to be prioritizing this Fafnir over the Ganesh pick, and I'm not really sold on this Fafnir just yet either, Finch. The real win for me on this Fafnir is the fact that going into that Draconic form can be a great way for preventing a lot of that immediate damage that Pittsburgh Knights has to offer, more specifically looking at Vote in these earlier phases with that Desert Fury, who has more often than not been using a lot of this early game aggression towards Mineral.
Another early gank on the Zyrhoes in the duo lane. Disapparate by Zero a little bit of time, but there's a sprint inside the minion wave. It's not enough damage. Zyrhoes makes it out yet again. It does cost him the purification beads, but Obey used the sprint as well.
Not an upgraded sprint though, so even if Wowy had wanted to keep the chase going, well, the tower shots are usually going to be enough to stop that in its tracks, but Zyrhoes maybe also somewhat expecting that gank to happen now, considering it's been the same gank that he's been having to deal with the past 2-3 games now.
Mineral with the gank into the long lane, but it's Weekend that is clearly the headline here, the one that has to absolutely perform if Obey are going to have a chance of getting this all the way to a 5th game. And Terra does have a lot of stuff that I think really does make me think that this Terra jungle can work. Her damage is actually sneaky good, even when she's not building damage. I'll talk about that later, as Ducky is in a good deal of trouble. He's been slowed, he's been shredded, and brought down within kill range, but Adapting and Deathwalker don't have the damage. Ducky survives.
Warrior's Blessing and the health potions that Ducky has opted for are going to be the real saving point there, but Silence is good at mid lane. Moswal not going to have an easy time looking for that free clear, and with the red buff respawning shortly, thought that Pittsburgh Knights were maybe going to toy with the idea of looking for an invade, but since Adapting is still on that solo side of the map, just doesn't seem as appealing as it might have initially appeared.
Instead, they'll fall back. The Knights at this point in the game are probably feeling really good about their next few fights they're going to take for these next few minutes. Naja, Ganesh, Anhur. That's a pretty potent grouping in which to do some early game fighting. They'll be going into the Terra, and Moswal is indeed in the mid lane on this Merlin, and they'll have the Fafnir there with them as well. I think that based on those 3v3 pairings, Knights should feel pretty good.
It is a little bit awkward though for adapting, because when firing wheels, you know, normally when you take a target up into the air, you want this big burst of damage as soon as they land, but Supernova and Desert Fury are both abilities that kind of, they're damage over time. You need to connect every single one of their ticks to really get the full benefit, and while that might be slightly easier to do than what I'm probably envisioning it as, I just don't see it as a guaranteed kill for PK, at least not in these earlier stages, until maybe when Zyrhoes and Vote have a little bit more itemization to their names. Then it starts to get more problematic, but early on, I don't really expect Adapting to be as much of a threat as he could have been with this Ninja.
Potentially had a more direct bursty sort of mage following him up. But I mean, even aside from that, the sash, the ring bounce, the slows, all that damage, and then allowing Vote to find some impales or EmilZy to get some knockups, there's some opportunities for this team. We'll just see how the Knights choose to play it. I mean, Obey have been the ones that I think have actually looked much better in the early game throughout this set, finding a ton of picks and being aggressive and playing very decisively. Maybe the Knights want to try and switch that around this game.
Some of the more recent sets, I think, doing a great job in giving Obey some of that much-needed early game experience. Even that most recent beatdown from E United can serve its purpose, because it really does look as though some adjustments have been made since that set just took place yesterday.
It's hard, I think, to take a lot of positive away from a loss because you still lost. But Obey are having some somewhat encouraging losses here. I think these two losses they had to the Knights were relatively close, as Adapting considers making an early gank, but with Zyrhoes this far back, there's not much to get there. But I mean, the losses to the Knights have been close. The United one was not, but it certainly exposed some of what Mineral I think needed to improve on in particular, and maybe we're seeing some of that here as Weekend makes another light gank attempt here for Deathwalker, but nothing serious.
It's tough to lock down that King Arthur, even with Terra and her AoE pressure. It's still not going to be an easy time dealing with DW, and with all that being said, Weekend mostly there to see if he could find a pick opportunity, but if not, clearing out that blue buff was a necessity anyway for this Terra. And Weekend actually not trailing all that far behind Adapting, and I'm expecting him to be behind Adapting. I want to clarify that right now. Neja just has an infinitely easier time traversing the jungle in comparison to a Terra, but it's really all about Weekend at least maintaining some relevancy here.
Adapting, moving into the jungle alongside EmilZy and Vote. Weekend, I think, recognizing this is happening, will at least be able to contest the farm, though it looks like most of that did go towards Adapting, but really no way he can step up any further than that. The Knights recognizing when the weakness is for Obey Alliance, and there's 3 members on the right-hand side if they want to look for a gank attempt on Ducky, but he is staying in the tower.
Ducky has no vision, but he doesn't need vision when he's got teammates that are able to let him know, hey, they just took our back Harpies, and you haven't seen Adapting since, but Adapting doesn't even care. He's going to take Ducky up into the air anyway with the Windfire wheels.
Dharmic Pillars is right there waiting. They'll stop him on top of all the damage. The silence as well. First blood for the Knights, cleanly executed. And you're saying that you didn't have the burst you wanted. Did you know that it was going to be a Ganesh Dharmic Pillar that did it for him?
If you can line up that side edging every single time, then it doesn't even matter what Zyrhoes or Vote do. They can miss their abilities for all we care. But Weekend gonna try to get a gank going on the opposite side of the map, divert some of that attention into this duo lane one more time, but it's a Soul. She literally just rolls on out of the monolith pressure.
That's likely why Zyrhoes has started to pick this Soul, is that if there's going to be a lot of ganking towards him on this left-hand side from Mineral and a bit from Weekend, then he'll pick something safe that can get him away from it. A lot of the times you think of Jingwei in that spot, but Soul does a lot of the same stuff.
Now, Obey, they're going to have to be careful here, because this is actually one of the first times that I think Pittsburgh Knights have really been able to shut down Obey in the early game without Obey finding a response. I want to reiterate on that point. These two teams have been very back and forth. Whenever one finds a pick, the other immediately follows suit. So it's interesting to see now Obey kind of showing some weaknesses here, I think, in the composition at the very least.
yes, there are some areas that have been there for them to exploit, and you kind of highlighted this earlier before the set as Weekend might be in some trouble. There's a collapse happening in the jungle. He's been hit by the Windfire wheels and will be brought right back down into the pain. Vote gets the impale for the second kill on the boards for the Knights. Ducky does want to come over and stop these Harpies from going down, but not a whole lot he can do just by himself. He does have the squad nearby, but I think the Knights are out of there.
Ducky's mostly just here to back up Mineral in case Pittsburgh Knights were looking for more onto Moswal, and Moswal, even though Vote's walking the opposite direction, can never factor anything as being safe. In fact, Ducky might be in a little bit more trouble than he bargained for. Gonna have to Lord of the Afterlife into his T2 tower because Deathwalker is chasing him down.
That's a ton of pressure. Probably the first time this whole set Deathwalker's been able to lane up against Ducky without having been successfully ganked 2 or 3 times. Weekend has been chilling in the solo lane every game except this one, and Deathwalker showing that he is certainly still a top-tier solo laner when he's got some pressure.
Weekend not going to be on the mark there with that wall stun. Was mostly waiting to see if Zyrhoes would try to venture through it, but games of chicken have definitely been going the way of Pittsburgh Knights in comparison to Obey. And for right now, Finch, I think that the sole focus from Obey just needs to be purely around trying to farm whatever experience Pittsburgh Knights leaves for Obey, because everything else has just been destruction. If Obey shows up where Pittsburgh Knights is farming, then Pittsburgh Knights are just going to farm the Obey members too.
Weekend might be in some trouble trying to come over to confirm the blue buff, but Adapting is here along with Deathwalker. That's some free ring bounce damage, and the King Arthur damage came over the wall. Weekend comes right back down, and Adapting finds the kill. Mineral's here as well, and with the Draconic Corruption, but he's going to land right back down on top of the Dharmic Pillars. He's silenced as well. He does find one stun, but this is another pick for the Knights. Suddenly disaster for Obey.
And don't get me wrong, I think Adapting is definitely doing a phenomenal job on this Ninja, but so far, Finch, every single one of these kills, it's been EmilZy in my eyes.
Yeah.
That's really the only member
This Ganesh
on Pittsburgh Knights that is shutting down Obey in their tracks. The silence, the slows off the Dharmic Pillars, the damage off the Dharmic Pillars. It's just been too much to handle.
Where is he at in damage? Can I see the damage charts? I just want to know if the Dharmic Pillars has done enough to be relevant. He's 4th! There you go! This Ganesh is hidden. He's swinging.
He's in the top 5, and that's pretty impressive when you consider who has actually been really involved in a lot of these engagements. And the fact is, I'm starting to understand now why Obey was so concerned about Pittsburgh Knights having this Ganesh in the first place.
And unfortunately, now that, or at least for Obey, now that they've allowed it through, it's posing a ton of serious problems. Now, if you're in the Knights, you're loving the fact that you got this Ganesh through here into your team, and it's been all the follow-up that you could want on the back of Adapting's Windfire wheels here so far. But you were talking about some what you wanted Obey to do, just trying to see if they can find any farm they can kind of away from where the Knights are. But I don't even know if the Knights have left anything like that open for Obey. Where can they hope to go?
No, this has definitely been very strained for Obey, because the little bits of experience that are left over for Pittsburgh Knights, it's like an odd Harpy camp here or there, and even then you're splitting it with not just yourself, but 2, sometimes even 3 of the other members.
Oh, Mineral.
These red buff invades have only just begun.
Yeah, these, I don't know if these are yours anymore, buddy. They do at least defend the blue buff, and Mineral able to leap away with the underhand tactics, but yeah, Obey don't really have very many places to go. Even their red buff being contested, even when they do secure it.
Moswal can't even pick up that red buff even if he wanted to. Vote also gonna hover this choke point just in case, right underneath those left side mid Harpies. Meanwhile, on the opposite side of the map in solo, Ducky's got his hands full.
Gold Fury's been started, but the real headline here is that Mineral's in some trouble, brought right back down into the Dharmic Pillars yet again. He does get the Draconic Corruption off, but Vote and Adapting work together to seal his fate. That is 4 ultimates all expended just to kill Mineral, and I think that's why Weekend has expended the ultimate. They might have some turnaround potential. Moswal finds the first kill for Obey.
Good arcane damage out of Moswal. Finally some signs of life here from Obey, because every single one of these picks so far have been completely unanswered. And Deathwalker might even be able to kill Ducky in the process if this Osiris isn't careful.
Ducky catching the hand a little bit here from Deathwalker in the 1v1. King Arthur blinks, Lord of the Afterlife baited out perfectly by Deathwalker, and that's another solo kill. He's got the hard reads like a Harry Potter book.
Ducky knew. His player cam said it all. The instant that the Deathwalker blinked in, Ducky realized his mistakes because he was full-on expecting EW to keep stepping forward. Instead, wisely backtracks, and that Lord of the Afterlife will serve purpose to no one.
And Deathwalker finds another huge kill. 2-0-3, Ducky level 11. I mean, that's the same level as EmilZy at this point, same level as his own mid laner too, just not where you want your Osiris to be. And this is the first time I think Ducky's been behind all set. He's been getting so much backup from Weekend. This time, though, he's struggling in the matchup.
But it's backup from a Terra jungle, and you're dealing with a Ganesh support, a Nejat jungle, and the King Arthur. It's just so much pressure from PK in that trio alone that a vote's not even needed. But he could have probably rotated if Pittsburgh Knights wanted him to. I just don't even think that anybody deemed it as necessary for how easily it was for PK to kind of control that blue buff scenario or situation.
Yeah, Adapting's doing nearly 4 times as much damage as what Weekend is on this Terra jungle. I mean, it's 200 above the Fafnir from Mineral. It just hasn't done enough of them so far here this game, and it keeps begging the question that if the only time that these Guardian jungle picks work is really narrow, niche, hard to achieve scenarios, is it even worth it? As Ducky has been caught by Adapting here yet again. Mineral also quite low as EmilZy and Deathwalker isolate him. They drop the Dharmic Pillars to try and lock down Mineral, but the underhand tactics allows him to escape. Ducky has used Lord of the Afterlife aggressively. He wants more action, but it's actually Deathwalker who's in trouble. Zyrhoes does catch up to Ducky in the end, but they make it 1-for-1, solo for solo.
Wow, we will get credited as well for that King Arthur kill. Pretty big bounty to go the way of Obey's Hunter. But it's still not enough, Finch. There still needs to be more from Obey in this early game if they don't want Pittsburgh Knights to just snowball out of control here. And things are only going to get more and more difficult because I think this Terra jungle can work. You just have to make it into that mid to late game phase, but PK doing everything they can to prevent that from taking place.
Gold Fury up, Gold Fury down. The Knights grab that one on the back of the 1-for-1 trade. Deathwalker for Ducky. They're now 5,700 gold out in front, 7k experience. And honestly, trading away the level 12 Ducky for the 14 Deathwalker is a pretty good trade for Obey. That wasn't all they traded. They couldn't find a way in to try and stop that Gold Fury.
Well, it just cost them so much to kill Deathwalker in the first place, and that's also been a big difference maker. Yes, Terra, and I'm a huge advocate for that Terra ultimate because I definitely do think it can provide a lot of damage where there might not necessarily have been any to start. But when you're this far behind in that jungle role, it does take a little bit of a hit as to how much of an impact that ult is really going to be able to provide here because Pittsburgh Knights are just that much further out in front.
Pyromancer as well now under siege. And the Knights should be able to grab this one. Desert Fury committed. Ducky can't quite make it into the picture in time, though it looks like he did kind of have the idea towards the end. Now with the rest of the Knights grouped up in mid, this might just be about, just grabbing some farm while they're here, or they might want to force down this tier 1 tower. I mean, they're up 7,000. Obey really don't want to fight into this one. It's Mineral who's in trouble. He's been dashed on by the Ganesh, and that's one more kill for the Knights.
Mineral just wanted to defend that T1 tower. Instead, could wind up as a catastrophe here. Weekend is stuck.
So good.
Could not go anywhere. Just gets trapped on top of that supernova and Adapting. I don't even know what it was that he probably a ring bounce, if anything, but that was just so much power from PK.
The Knights now can take this tier 1 tower through the method of brute force. EmilZy tanking it up, and the tower will crumble down with only 3 members up. Obey can still defend the tier 2, and it looks like the Knights are recognizing it. Without a wave, it's hard to get in there and force that one down, so they'll just back up.
No Fury, though, and his Pittsburgh Knights took that not too long ago. Keep in mind, and Fire Giant, the only real global objective left for grabs, and I don't think Pittsburgh Knights want to approach it just yet. Still pretty early on, but Ducky gonna face check anyway, and I think he's got the right idea because this is fairly unpredictable as to where Pittsburgh Knights want to go next.
I think they very well could have been on it, with all based on the information that Obey had, so that was the right call to at least go take a look. But at this point, things are starting to get out of reach. 16 for Vote, 14 for Moswal, 17 for Zyrhoes, 16 for Wowy, so he's relatively close. But these real problem areas are the solo jungle. Deathwalker, 17 to 14 for Ducky, adapting 15 to 13 for Weaken. Those two critical roles can't do nearly as much as they need to.
Mineral and Moswal, though,
Hanging out.
probably happy to not have to worry about an invade underneath that red buff. Wowie's actually going to be the one to pick it up. Might be because of the fact that he's level 17 in comparison to Moswal. But Ducky, tell me that we haven't seen this one already, Finch. And for now, this Osiris will manage to hold on to life. We can get a good root onto Deathwalker, followed up by a Hammer Stun. But Mineral might have just signed his own fate. No, instead adapting. Not going to invest the Windfire Wheels just yet. That backup from Moswal going to be the ultimate disengaging tool.
But Deathwalker wants a Weaken, blinks in and hits him with the ultimate. Next target is Mineral, but the underhand tactics again allows the escape, but adapting has the sash, and the Windfire Wheels and Dharmic Pillars awaits him yet again. Boat gets the kill credit. Next one in trouble is a Weaken, but he dashes and repositions. Wowy working together with Ducky. They actually find Deathwalker for one support for solo.
That Brawler's Beatstick proc, though, going to take out a lot of the effectiveness of Weaken's team sustain here with this Terra. Still, it's enough that PK at least don't feel comfortable with trying to brute force this T1 in solo down all the way. And in fact, it could be Obey who manages to strike back with a T1 tower force of their own.
You can tell that the Knights aren't winning quite as cleanly in these fights as they would like to. And you don't want to let Obey hang around in this game too long, Taco. They clearly are able to make some trades.
Well, to be fair, Adapting and EmilZy are using two pretty big team fighting ultimates to montage this level 13 Fafnir now. And I'm not sure that the value is going to be all that needed to kill Mineral currently. I think that he will probably die from some other spillage of DPS, whether that's Zyrhoes or Vote, it doesn't really matter. I think that they both have more than enough right now to deal with this Fafnir that is so severely underfarmed in comparison to their own carries.
It doesn't seem particularly fruitful to repeatedly kill Mineral. I mean, you said at the beginning of the game that you weren't so sure about this Fafnir pick. I can tell you I'm still not, because he hasn't lived a fight long enough to show me why they want
I'm not sold
on
on
the
it at all.
composition. I mean, whatever the plan is, he hasn't even gotten executed yet. They've been killing him at the start of every single fight, and he might get collapsed on yet again. Several members of the Chaos team nearby. Weaken is the one that gets hit by the Windfire Wheels, this time brought back into the Dharmic Pillars. Much better usage to remove the Terra from the equation. Ducky ups down, but he can't quite find adapting. I think he might have been unable to see. No, the Shibalanki's on his own side, just could not hit him. Instead, now he's the one that's in trouble.
But the damage was good from Ducky, and I think that that alone is going to keep Vote isolated. Vote's been on this Oni Fury the entire time, and Pittsburgh Knights, just like that, they find Weaken, and they find the objective, and now it's only a Pyromancer that separates PK from looking directly towards this Fire Giant. But as the game continues to climb, Finch, things are only looking more and more grim here for Obey. I think the main issue has really just been the fact that the Dharmic Pillars are shredding through this front line, no problem.
On the back of the Windfire Wheels, Wowy has the Pyromancer low, and the Knights strip it away though at the last minute, and they want to keep surging. Ducky is in some trouble, has to use Lord of the Afterlife defensively. Even with Moswal's damage that are back him up, the Knights just go right towards the Fire Giant. Frenzy popped as well, and it's Deathwalker on zone duty. Moswal and Mineral can barely make their way in. Weaken's nearby, but no chance for the steal. Fire Giant for the Knights. Mineral in trouble too for the Knights. Adapting gets one more, and they're going to keep right on going.
No reason not to. Adapting here really just to make sure that Moswal can't look to try and poke his head over for this T2 defense. Instead, that's going to be another free 1,500 gold for Pittsburgh Knights to add to the bank. And not only that, but Mineral's dead for 20 seconds, Finch. I think that that's more than enough time for a soul on her to take a Phoenix.
Especially because Weaken's only just now started to channel his back. They don't have the minions here, but this is going to be an Oni wave they're going to push with as well to make matters worse. Ducky taken to the sky and taken to the ground. Vote finds the first kill of this fight, but some members of the Knights are low in the backline. Weaken used the beads to get off the Earth and Fury, but he's being chopped down by Deathwalker. While he has the return autos, but they just are not enough The Knights can't get the Phoenix, but they already got the tier 2.
Obey have some really good components for a lot of AoE presence, Finch, but they're just so far behind that you hardly ever see an opportunity for Weekend, Moswal, and Mineral to all survive together long enough to actually utilize their combinations. And it's because of that why Pittsburgh Knights are able to just disengage, resustain, and then come right back in for the fight.
Ducky's still not a part of this fight just yet, but when he spawns in a second, he should at least be able to make it unless they start the fight right now. Dharmic Pillars and the damage from King Arthur chunk. Wowy has to leave. Mineral removed is adapting unstoppable 7 in a row. The Knights have been patiently whittling away at Obey's defenses, and now they move into the right side Phoenix.
Good Lord of the Afterlife, though, gonna get channeled onto EmilZy and Vo. Both of them forced pretty far into that backside, but Obey, they can't afford to leave these Phoenixes. They can't afford to keep chase. Ring bounce, fortunately, not gonna spread here for Obey. Only connects onto Ducky. But the arcane stance damage from Moswal starting to look up.
Some good damage over the wall that forces the Knights to finally acquiesce and head over for the mid tier 2, as if that's such a bad consolation prize. Couldn't quite brute force the right side Phoenix, though, despite their best efforts. Once the game gets narrowed down into just defense, even when they're this far behind, Obey have some signs of life.
I think it's interesting, though, that Pittsburgh Knights, they probably could have taken that T2 tower no problem, but they just didn't want to chance Obey running them down because, in all fairness, I definitely think that Obey would have 100% gone on a wild goose chase if PK had looked for that T2 in mid.
It's probably one of their best options right now. I mean, waiting on the Knights to come back in and barrel stuff you underneath the Phoenix doesn't sound great. So if they can present you with a suboptimal fight out elsewhere on the map, then I think if you're Obey, you have no choice but to take it. Instead, they'll rotate 4 members over to the left lane to grab this weakened tier 2 and let Adapting push up the wave in mid to threaten the tier 2 there.
Seems unlikely that Obey will really try to defend anything outside of these Phoenixes. As long as they've got Moswal alive, I think that anything is possible in terms of a turnaround opportunity underneath these Phoenix structures. And so Pittsburgh Knights are definitely going to have to still play this one smart. Not necessarily careful, but definitely smart.
Adapting grabs the tier 2 in mid. And I think I get what you're alluding to there. I mean, at this point, Obey are so far behind, they're going to have to take probably a bad fight if they ever want to win even one at all. It's just a question of when you pick that moment to try and force a fight up against the Knights. The good news is they only have Fire Giant for another 15 minutes, so if you're on Obey, you won't have to fight into nearly as big of a burden as you would right this second.
8 more seconds or so on this FG, and
Get it out of here!
Obey know it. They are not looking to leave outside of that Phoenix territory, Finch. And, well, Primal Fury, not a half bad pickup when you didn't really have to worry about forcing anything. And that's I think that's the most important part here, is that Pittsburgh Knights, they're just in a position, they don't have to force anything. They can just do whatever the hell they want.
Primal Fury will be going down in favor of the Knights, so they'll have an opportunity to back and then head back over towards the FG. Is this a scenario where you can afford to come out and contest that Fire Giant, or does Obey gotta wait for the FG to go down and just fight on their Phoenixes?
Yeah, that'd be a suicide pact from the team
Gotcha.
if Obey try to contest the Fire Giant right now.
Understood. So Obey happily hanging out underneath the Phoenixes. Maybe they've got some stories they can exchange in
Where
the meantime.
they will be for a long time. Ducky can tell him all about his woes and the fact that, hey guys, it's not fun having 3 people, 3-man ult you off cooldown, but here we are.
Did you guys enjoy Wraithen's cooking the other day? Maybe they can talk about that for a little bit, because they certainly can't come out here and do this Fire Giant. I big agree. It looks like the call, instead of doing the silly things I said, is to try and get what farm they can. They're going to take down the tier 1 and left, and maybe even see if they have time to get the tier 2.
Maybe Wraithen's actually got to step up the cookbook. give these boys more game fuel, man.
That's
I mean,
right.
This is not the Wraithen's cooking energy I would expect from Obey.
This ain't the look, whatever it is.
Game 1 though, that was definitely it.
Well, that would be when they were the closest to the last time they had it, right? So that just goes to show he's got to have some in between.
Speaking facts here, Finch.
Now it's time for the Phoenix Seeds on the right-hand side. Forces the Draconic Corruption out from Mineral. He immediately catches an impale to the side of the face. Not ideal, I'd imagine. as the Knights reset for another push.
Mineral made it into the Draconic form, and this is the longest I've seen him alive through it
Yes.
this entire game, Finch. It only took 28 minutes, but this Fafnir's finally getting his chance to shine.
Taco, we're close enough where if you'd been wrong, I'd have stopped you, but you weren't. Mineral, getting the most value we've seen all game, is going to have to transform back. Weekend does hit multiple with the Earth and Fury. Supernova comes through as well. It's actually the Knights who are relatively low. Obey is held on for a moment, but Vote finds a way to finally shut down a Weekend. Now Ducky isolated at the front. Vote gets to a double kill as Adapting goes up to the sky in a celebratory fashion.
He had it just in case, but Ducky, unfortunately, will fall right alongside his team leader there, Weekend. Dharmic Pillar's out as well, surrounding this Phoenix territory. Mineral nowhere left to run, just gonna get gobbled up in the process. Moswal trying to cook him in the backside, but Adapting still gonna be standing tall here.
Cook 'em!
And only Wowy. He's been here before though, Finch.
Can he find a way to defend? Seems unlikely, as you said earlier. Maybe check with your magic conch. Wow, he does make it back to the fountain, shuts down Adapting. Titan at half HP, and without minions, the Knights are having to tank it up. But no suspense here. The Knights close the set out, 29 minutes, 3-1 over Obey.
I'll be honest, Finch, I got a little bit scared there for PK because when I see Adapting die and it's Wowy there playing base defense, I mean, it doesn't seem like all that long ago when he got that Chernobog clean deicide, so never count him out, but this time around, no dice, as Obey will wind up taking the set loss overall.
It does seem like Obey are still in relatively good spirits, though, which is good news for them. They put on what I think was better than most of us expected. I mean, you heard us on the desk saying that we didn't even think they'd be able to get this one win. So some improvement from the Obey roster, I think, to try and use going forward.
They nearly had a couple wins in that set. I mean, we
Agreed.
almost ended up in a Game 5 situation here, but Pittsburgh
That would've been
Knights
sick, man.
just weren't having any of it. They closed those games out much in the fashion that we were probably anticipating them to, but if I'm PK, I'm not even sure they're feeling all too great about that one.
Well, we'll get a chance to hear a little bit about how PK are feeling. We're going to have the breakdown and the interview in just a few minutes.
Skillshot, the official production partner of the SMITE Pro League.
That was a barn burner. 3-1 in the direction of the black and yellow. Fantastic stuff as per usual. Not as per usual. Obey standing up. Also not as per usual. I have turned my aggro into a Hinderman.
It's me.
I don't know why.
Yeah. Main reason is Ryan had to disappear real quick. He needed sensitivity training about the fact that he didn't like Poseidon in the jungle. So Tom instructed me that we had to make that happen. That's why he's not here. I'm here instead. Ganesha. That's what I want to say.
Well, how do you feel about, before we get into it, how do you feel about Poseidon jungle real quick?
How do you feel about it, first of all, I guess is a real question.
You're on the hot seat, sir.
I think the exact opposite of whatever F. thinks, but not the same as
Taco!
Ryan, who goes too far.
Taco's
got to go do interviews right about now. Let's talk about the game real quick, though, because that was a really good set, but overall, that specific game, the Ganesh pick, so important for me from EmilZy, and in all honesty, silences the setup, shuts down so much of what this comp that Obey wanted to run can do.
Unsure if Naja was intended for adapting at the beginning or if it was deflects. Love the idea of Naja in the jungle at the end of the day. But at the end of the set, it was all about the Ganesh being able to lock it down. And the story of the set as well. Really loved to watch this one. Obey Alliance were able to take game number 1, be competitive in game number 2, show signs of life in game number 3, and then get decimated in game number 4. If you look at it from the lens of the Pittsburgh Knights, it's a much better lens.
Is it, though? I mean, it could have been a little bit cleaner from the Knights overall. They'll know that themselves with what went right and wrong in that game. Coming into this, you would hope if you're a Knights fan or a Knights player, this would be a quick 3-0 for them for the day. But Obey, they put on a good show here. I'm happy with their performance. They've got a lot to learn, but it's in the right direction.
I think that's why, watching the set continue, I think that's why it's so much more comforting to Pittsburgh Knights fans. Because if you watch game 1, 2, and 3, you go, oh my God, you guys are losing a week. But you watch game number 4 and you go, okay, so you were just kind of asleep or something. That's the Knights that we know and love.
And I think the one thing that I've been saying to a couple of people now behind the scenes, but I should say live really, is I think Knights really have this tendency at the moment of playing to the standard of the team they're up against. They kind of lull a little bit when they're against lower teams that they should be beaten, but against the higher teams, they'll step up and play at the same level as them. Even if it doesn't always go well, I do think it depends on the team they're up against. And that's really worrisome, I'm a little bit concerned by that.
They're an alarm clock team for me. I think they come in kind of just chilling, and then, we lost to Weekend, what? And then you snap up, and you're kind of in it. I think that's kind of the look, which, like you said, might be up and down as far as how much you love it.
Makes interesting SMITE, though. That's the main thing. It does make interesting SMITE when you get to see that team that's, on paper, all-stars, struggle against teams that are on the lower end, but when the day's done, it's all over with, they still come out on top.
I mean, that's where we win, right?
Yeah, we get the fun games of SMITE. So do you guys at home.
We just get to put on a good show. Good show coming up as well. Post-game interview. Let's talk to the Knights.
Thanks, Tom. It's Zyrhoes and EmilZy here to talk to you from the Knights. First thing I want to say to you guys, congratulations on the win, but I can tell you all aren't, jumping for joy. I guess, how's the team feeling after that match? And I imagine you wanted the 3-0, so talk to me a bit about that.
How do we feel? I don't know. I feel like the games against Dignitas yesterday as well. We're not great right now, I think, and I think that kind of shows how we play. At all the stages of the game, we mess up early game, we mess up mid game, and late game as well. I feel like we're super inconsistent right now, and obviously we have a lot to work on. But I kind of forgot what your question was, but that's kind of the state of the team right now.
Well, where do you think the first area of improvement really needs to come from then, if you feel as though your early, mid, late game aspects are all being impacted so heavily?
I don't know. I feel like we just need to be, because we try a lot of different comps, and I feel like the comps that we, when we run the double ADC, for example, we're pretty confident we play in that. So even if we do mess up, that we always know how to get back into the game. But whenever we try other stuff, I feel like if anything goes wrong, and then it's just really hard for us to get back into it. And I really don't know. We have to work on just listening to each other, I think, more.
Well, EmilZy, they spend the whole set banning Ganesh away from you, and then at the very last game, you let it through, and you have a really monster performance. What is it that you like so much about getting to play Ganesh, and what he lets you do?
It's the skin, the global emote. Just get to jump around doing, doing. I don't know. I think Ganesh just kind of has always been really underrated. He's really good against these comps that wants to dive your backline. He has the mess is really strong. If you utilize the free correctly, it's good. His passive is OP. You get a lot of farm. You get a lot of items. You do a lot of damage. And I think he just works really well with the items right now. Pridwin and Relic Deck are 2 items that works really well on him.
Well, Ganesh is also pretty sick in 2v2 types of situations and some joust type stuff. So you got any comments on that, EmilZy?
Yeah, so that was a good setup. All right, tomorrow the Knights are hosting a Royal Joust tournament. Saturday, it's going to be NA region. It's going to be crossplay. I'll be there. I'll be casting with JMac. That's going to be 10k gems, Knights merchandise. So follow Knights Arena on Twitter, and I'll see you tomorrow at the Joust tournament.
Okay, well, that sounds like a lot of fun. Appreciate both of you there, EmilZy and Zyrhoes. Again, guys, congratulations on the win, even though I know it wasn't quite what y'all wanted. Looking forward to seeing y'all play again. We'll get it back over to the desk.
Very proud of EmilZy there to be the first player to ever nail a promo.
It was a good promo.
That was a decent promo.
I can't wait to watch that myself. I'm going to roast the hell out of him now. Whenever he gets anything wrong on that cast, I'm going in.
Caster doesn't know anything. Oh my God.
What's he talking about?
Why does EmilZy have a job? Reddit thread.
Yep, going to do it. It's going to be a great time.
It's going to be fantastic.
I will say, though, that interview was a really good look at the Knights, in my opinion. Like, what Zero said there, it was so humbling and nice to see what they had to say about their performance and how they feel they've struggled. You know, it's unusual. Not all the teams like to do that and be honest about it, but it's a good reflection that the Knights are looking inward at their performances and realizing they're having issues, and it's not something that's just being glossed over to an extent.
I mean, particularly with players like Zyrhoes and EmilZy, if you give them a mouthpiece, they're going to be able to kind of stand up and talk about that. They're definitely players that look intrinsically at their game, and kind of listening to them both on screen, off screen. They've been around the scene for a while. We know how they look at their game, and being able to kind of bring that to you guys with post-game interviews is really sick.
Yeah, it's good to just see them being more honest about what went down. Let's look at the standings for you, though. LG still at the bottom of base, still down there 2 after today. It's not really a climb, but the top end is still all to play for. And look where United is of all teams.
This is wild to me. If you ask me, the 2 best teams in the league, I'm telling you, 6th and 5th place.
Well, take into account, remember everyone at home as well, if you didn't watch mid-season, it was Renegades that were the team that won the tournament. They're currently set in 6th. Crazy.
Next week, we'll get a chance to see Renegades twice, Team Rival twice as well, SSG. So the fact that we're going to see Rival twice and Renegades twice is really big. Obviously, Rival versus SSG and then SK versus Renegades, we assume that both teams wind up on the good side, but then watch them go head-to-head. That is the game to watch. Watch all 4, of course. I got to do my job and tell you to watch every day. But if you watch one, show up on Friday morning and watch Renegades versus it's going to be fantastic.
Nailed it.
You good?
Yeah.
What's that? Why are you laughing?
Renegades versus... Yeah.
Splice, you know.
That one.
You know what? Okay.
The one he said.
I'm going to recover. EmilZy did a good promo last time. It's my turn for a promo. If at home you want to play and have some flair, say hola to the Calavera chest. You guys can pick up Calavera Scotty and bring the game home and bring the dog to your opponents. You like that?
It was a bit weird, but yeah, okay, I'll take it. It'll do. Get up. Bring the dog to your opponents by bringing yourself home.
No, you yeet the dog. It's the change to Scotty.
It's a good point. It is a yeet of a dog. Then you know what they need to do is have a yeet skin now where you throw the dog. Yeet! But that's high res. I mean, we did Thanatos, so what could be next?
Oh, my goodness. We're going to say hola to the Calavera chest, and we're going to say adios to the stream. Thank you so much for joining us. Myself, Hinduman, Aggro, everybody behind the scenes, everybody in front of the scenes, and, of course, you guys. Peace and much love to you.